right, so you guys are with Black Box Radio, and we are so happy to have you tonight. And I've been itching to do this. And this is not a versus Philly versus Baltimore, because we know who's gonna win that. We're gonna leave that out.
Wow.
But yeah, we know what's up with that. But right now, this is Black Men Teach.
Wow.
This is not a versus. This is Black Men Teach, and Black men do that. So I am Queen from Black Box Radio, and I welcome you guys. We're gonna have the conversation. That's what we're gonna have.
Okay.
We're gonna talk about Black men teaching. So I've introduced myself. I want everybody to introduce themselves, and then we're gonna dive right into the topic. All right, G, we're gonna start with you.
I'm Jared Forte, producer here at Black Box Radio. I'm also a teaching artist and audiovisual producer. I guess I describe my capacity as a teacher mainly in sort of a non-traditional sense. I work most with lifelong learners and in non-traditional teaching settings like after-school programs. I'm director of Baltimore United Viewfinders, and that is a learning community for folks of all ages. So we work from age 8 to age 80, teaching skills in digital media, storytelling, technology, and so I'm excited to be a part of the conversation here. So that's G.
That's G. All right. Brother Akil, hit us. Come on.
Yeah, so Akil Parker, I've been a high school mathematics teacher for 15 years, still going strong. I too teach lifelong, I guess you would call them lifelong learners. I work in a night school program down North Philly, teaching people that have previously had to separate from the school district of Philadelphia for various reasons, and they're trying to get their high school diplomas, still at the age of 40 or 50 or, whatever. So I applaud them. I'm also an adjunct professor at Cheney University, and I'm also an adjunct professor at LaSalle University. I do some work over there too. And I'm a husband and a father of 5 altogether. And I own and operate All This Math, which is a private tutoring business and an educational consulting company. And that's just my way of trying to contribute to the push for us as Black people to have some type of independent alternatives for our children.
Amazing.
That pretty much sums me up.
All right. Stephen L. Ware, hit us.
All righty. Good evening. This is my 28th year teaching. Since 1992, I've been involved in education. 15 years in high school, 15 years on the collegiate level at BCCC, as well as dealing with students who are incarcerated in the juvenile justice system here in Baltimore, Maryland. And currently, this semester, God has put in my plate working with developmentally impaired students that are almost adults. You got to take this serious. You got to take it seriously, because we are 3rd generation away from manufacturing jobs, it's done. So we have to teach our children to be self-reliant learners. And I think that we as men, we have the stamina and drive to demand that from our children. So that's why I'm still involved, and that's why I'm still in it.
Amazing. Amazing. Brother Goodwin. Brother Kareem, let's hear from you.
Yes, Kareem Goodwin. I've been in education for over 15 years. I'm based out of Philadelphia. All of my teaching has been in Philadelphia and in urban schools in Philadelphia. English teacher, love English, started out as an English teacher, worked my way up to a dean, crossed over into administration, and now I'm the principal and CEO of Widener Partnership Charter School in Chester, PA. And I'm just dedicated to education. I know the power of it. I know what it's done for me, and that's why I'm in it.
Yeah.
Love it. Brother Kennedy, talk to us.
Okay, mic check, everybody, mic check. So fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, this is my 21st year in education, and I retired officially last year. I started off in special education and public school, and then I switched over to Catholic schools, strictly high school. I then started a rites of passage program where I had troubled boys. And so basically, I've spent maybe 18 years just with an all male classroom. Uh, so I think I'm full at this time, but you know how it is. You see students as you travel and your work is never done. But I am officially retired. So that's my position, and whether I get paid for it, whether I teach or not is irrelevant, but I'm not gonna get paid for it anymore. So that's where I am.
Got it. All right, brother Karaja.
What's going on, y'all? Yes, I don't know about that Raja. It sounds like you're trying to say Roger
I
or
said
something
Karaja.
like that.
Did I say it wrong? Say it.
Ragu. It's like ragu spaghetti sauce. Key ragu spaghetti. Yeah, key ragu. Let's put it all together.
Got
There
it.
you go. Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. Everybody was going over who they are and whatnot. I feel like I know a couple of y'all. Like I met. Never mind. My name is Kiragu. I'm a teacher, special educator at Frederick Douglass High School in Baltimore City. Also a stand-up comedian. And what I've been doing lately is trying to codify, the practice. I've been teaching kids stand-up after school. I've been teaching for 15 years. I've been doing the stand-up thing for about 5 or 6 years. And we've converted everything now so that we have a virtual comedy class. And we were trying to work with kids, trying to make them create comedy content that will encourage other kids to stay engaged with school during distance learning. But the main idea is to take the idea of comedy and the things we learn from comedy and show the kids how to use some of the tools they already have, like with social media and some of the natural talents they have as far as humor, and try and get them to learn how to tell their own stories.
Dope.
All right, brother Sadiq. Tell us who you are.
How you guys doing? My name is Sadiq Cooper. I've been teaching in urban education high school for about 9 years now. I think this will be my 10th year. I primarily taught math, but I've also taught a few sociology courses. I developed this little sociology curriculum of mine as an elective. Basically trying to show students is how would I describe this in layman's terms? I basically tried to talk to or speak to some of the societal hurdles that Black and brown kids are going to face and try to give them various tools and perspectives that allow them to navigate some of the obstacles they'll face. So that's kind of one of my favorite things. It's called SEL in school. It's just social emotional learning, but it's basically trying to teach the kids how to navigate certain social obstacles like racism, sexism, things like that. That's my favorite thing that I say that I've done over the years, but I've also, me and Park have been linking, here in Philadelphia and North Philadelphia, just trying to make sure that we send the kids that we face on the right path and things like that. So I'm also a high school basketball coach and volleyball coach. So I'm really into sports, and I try to give kids as many avenues to be successful as possible. That's just something I believe. And I know somebody mentioned earlier how we're a few generations away from the industrialization of our economic system. So that's kind of one of the things that I talked about in my sociology class, as far as, having a competitive edge in whatever avenue that you want to take. That's something that I'm a real big proponent of. So, but yeah, I like to keep it short and simple. I'm trying to make sure that, our kids get some type of liberation that's different than just having a one-track mindset. So.
Amazing. Right. Amazing. And you coach.
Oh, yeah.
This is not the conversation for the Sixers. They got 4 forwards, a half a guard, but we're not going to talk about them right now. Let's move on.
Yeah, for them,
this is BlackMen.
No outside shooting.
Stay out of that. I had to throw that in there. I had to tell you, bro. All right, so I'm hearing about pedagogy. Yeah. And I hear this, and I'm not an educator. I know, don't laugh how I say it, guys. But
it's all good.
Can we get a pronunciation check on that? We don't want the audience to be
say my name. You pronounce my name better than that.
Break it out for me. What is it?
Go ahead, Doc. Talk to her.
What is it, G?
Pedagogy.
Pedagogy. Yes, the pedagogy. And I've heard so much about that, and not being an educator. It's the way that you teach, the understanding of teaching.
Right.
And as Black men, what has been, and what we would say, what has been the barrier for Black men when it comes to teaching, and why are you such a depressed population when it comes to being teachers? Why do you guys think that? I need to know some insight, because I always say no Black male teachers, but I'm here to say they are, but they're less than 5%. So can we talk about that? Akil, can you give me something on that?
Yeah. Why are there so few Black male teachers?
Absolutely.
I think it's a lot of reasons. I think if we look at in terms of the historical context, we got to go back to Brown versus Board of Education, and happened, and this is what Derek Bell, late law professor, brother taught at Harvard. Not that that's really a big deal that he taught at Harvard, but that's just where he worked at. But in his book Silent Covenants, he talks about interest convergence theory. And he talks about how it's like, okay, well, in terms of pushing integration, one of the things that happened was a lot of the Black men and women that had teaching positions and were in administrative positions, they had to lose their positions and make way for, in order for more white people to get jobs. And, teaching is really a profession that is dominated by white women. And it really becomes an issue of economics and labor. And the fact that these white girls that go to college and get degrees, they need jobs because they got to pay off their student loans. And then a lot of them, they jump into Teach for America and these other programs and whatnot. And really, so, that, of course, it's grounded in an economic need. It's not about, building up, our community and our children. And I don't expect them to. That's our responsibility. But they can get income from that. Another part of it also too is even myself, I never wanted to be a teacher. I tell people that, once I became a teacher, then I wanted to be a teacher. But I never wanted to be a teacher in high school. I never wanted to be a teacher when I was in college. I think it's not marketed to us, in a certain way. And I graduated from high school in '97. So I grew up, in the '90s and, in hip hop and whatnot, golden era, I guess, and, listening to the drug dealer rap and all that. And my thing is I'm trying to get money. I'm trying to get a bag. And, so I majored in finance because I originally had aspirations of being like an investment banker or equities trader or something like that when I went to college. But I never thought about, teaching in terms of being able to be lucrative. And again, I don't think people should treat teaching like a hustle, even though many people do. And there's money to be made in it, especially when you have some level of tenure, especially when you're able to do a lot of extracurricular activities. But I think people just don't know that you can live a comfortable lifestyle. A lot of brothers don't know you can live a comfortable lifestyle as an educator. And also there's a lot, I'm gonna say this one last thing. I think there's just a lot of a lot of the anti-Blackness that we suffer from. Because when I talk to my own students, and I'll be like, bro, yo, you be a good teacher. I see how you're intelligent, you have your certain abilities and certain qualities and characteristics that would be beneficial in the classroom. The first thing a lot of them say, and assistants say the same thing, is man, I had to smack one of these kids. But then I tell them, I say, wait, but listen, I never felt like I had to smack you, right? So, but they never think about that because it's about, relationship building and rapport. But that propaganda, just in terms of how a lot of us feel about Black people in general and Black children, there's a huge disconnect and a lot of animosity between older generations and younger generations. So I think a lot of people feel like, if I have a choice of what career to go into, I'm not going to put myself in that space because they feel like it's a hostile space. And I mean, it is, in many ways, it is a hostile space, but it's not really hostile because of those children. It's hostile because of the neo-colonial schools and the structures that we have and the power structure that controls those schools and what they push forth.
Well, in undergrad for me, I started out as an accounting major, and I had to take an elective, and the elective I took was Intro to Education. And I had a phenomenal teacher by the name of Juanita Gates. And
Okay.
And Juanita Gates, you see? Yeah, Juanita Gates was the woman. And I just gravitated to her. And coming from an HBCU and getting all that love from an HBCU and seeing the power of the teacher, and it wasn't forced. It was shown out of love how to incorporate things in the classroom. What were the different types of education you can go into? If you love to read, you can go into English. If you love numbers, you can go into math. It was just her passion that made me want to go into it. Also, I really wasn't into accounting. It was something that my mother wanted me to do. But once I got involved in education, I found my niche. And I used to get really angry when people used to say, oh, anybody can be a teacher. That's not true. I'm 28 years in, and I still enjoy getting up in the morning. You see what I'm saying? And it doesn't even matter about the type of student that I'm dealing with. I just was, 6 years ago, I had all the kids that everybody heard about in Baltimore City, creating all these crimes. And when you talk to them, you sit down and you show them that you have a passion behind what you're trying to deliver, they come around gradually. And ever since Juanita Gates and a couple others, I've been involved in this and loving it. And got my undergrad degree from Morgan and then went off to College Park. And that was a whole different, I don't even want to talk about that. Nonetheless, I made it through thanks to that HBCU groundwork that I put in. But all in all, it just takes a teacher that has the compassion. And Juanita Gates was the woman that showed me that teaching was an artistry. It was art. And whatever you put forth to your students, you have to show your passion and show that it's art. And that's how I conduct my classes.
Amazing. So at you, more like on a college level, from your instruction, it gave you the passion to want to be a teacher.
Exactly.
And what college was that? Let's talk about the school that was.
Oh, that was the Morgan State University.
Mighty Morgan State.
There
That's all I want to hear, bro.
Mighty bear.
Yes.
Did you hear that? I just want to make sure you
heard that.
Nice colors because it's orange and blue, like Virginia State, so they get a pass.
Oh, Lord.
But we have a lot more opportunities to go out and eat instead of the hungry Trojan.
Oh, so we're gonna move back to BlackMen Teach.
Yeah, they got one spot.
Look, if they're HBCUs above or on the Mason-Dixon line, they just don't count, except for Cheney. That's it.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, we're gonna let that go, brother. Kennedy, come on in here and tell us why Black men aren't present in the school at a rate that we see these white women, 80%.
Okay, so first of all, shout out to Morgan State, and any other school that educates Black men, for that matter. So it's going to depend really on how you view the situation we're in. If you view it from a point of view of numbers and economics, like Brother Akil, then the truth of the matter is, the education establishment, they just don't trust Black men to do adequate jobs because they believe that Black men in general are inferior. If you take it from the numbers. So once they get a safe quota from that point of view, then they're gonna focus more on hiring, save the world white women once they reach a quota. If you take it from the economic point of view in terms of how many teachers do we need. So if we need 20 of them, we really don't need more than 3 or 4 that are African American if we need 20, if you take it from that standpoint. But if you take it from a historical attack of Black people in general, I feel like every system in America, including education, feels threatened that it's going to be overrun by more talented or more educated Black people. We see it in sports, we see it in media, we see it in everything that we do. So naturally, when it comes to Black males in the classroom, why would they want to see more Black men in the classroom when they would rather see more Black male dropouts so that they could support, the pipeline to prison system? Yep. So it just depends on how you're looking at it. But I feel like middle of the road, the bottom line is I'm going to co-sign Brother Akil. nobody vets you at an early age to be a teacher, and you don't see a lot of teachers like ourselves out there in front of the general population of young people. So what you have to do, Queen, is you have to send every middle school a copy of this, so that maybe some black male would see for the first time at least 8 males together in an educational setting, because it really isn't pushed to the forefront that black males, number one, teach, and number two, do it effectively, and number three, earn enough money to support families. So it's going to depend on the view that you take.
Amazing. That's amazing. So G, I know you say you teach alternative and longtime learners, and you teach diverse students. So why do you think there are not more of you present in teaching?
Well, I think just from a broad perspective, demographically, if you look at the generation of people who would be teaching now, the impacts on Black men across culture and across society over the last 25, 30 years took a lot of candidates out of eligibility for that, just by early involvement in the criminal justice system, being diverted away from professional careers in general. So, you know, that kind of took stuff right off of the top. I do know that for me, I wasn't necessarily, I always was a teacher. Like it was just like a part of my personality and the way that I interacted with people. So it was something that was kind of recognized in me in just the way that I interacted with people. But, you know, I was fortunate enough to have opportunities to exhibit that and to be validated for that type of behavior. I had that type of encouragement. So again, having the recognition of people who are inclined towards it, and then having the early support for it, I think is really the key. And it's also, it's also got to be cool. Like teachers, from a purely standpoint of the students I work, teachers are like nerds. They're like geeks. You know, you're not cool. You know, that's sort of the and with young people, being cool with your peers is paramount. Like, so, and sometimes you'll have teachers that, if you're trying to be cool, it's transparent and you corny. Like there's a lot of things in terms of reaching and identifying young people who would be really great teachers. But I think at the end of the day, the impact that you make on people, it inspires them to pass it along. Just like the brother said before, it was a great teacher that inspired them to want to teach. And a lot of times teachers are in situations where it doesn't look like they're loving their life a whole lot. Also, in general, there's this narrative that, oh, teachers is, you know, it's such a hard job. It's not, you know, it's underpaid. You know, the narrative behind it is, why would I want to do that when why would I want to do that when I could go make some real money somewhere? Like they were saying before, trying to secure the bag. So if you don't already have the privilege, I think the narrative around teaching attracts people who already have privilege, like the large population of white women who occupy the space are coming from a place where there's a level of privilege there, and they feel like they are giving back, you know, and there's just like the psychological benefit for that. Where if you're coming from a situation where you haven't gained anything for yourself, it's like, well, I got to get something first before I give back. You know, that's sort of the mindset. And then I'll go and do this or go that. I think a lot of it is just kind of tied to what our understanding experiences of teachers when we're young, and it kind of goes on from there. And, you know, you have to plant the seed, because I had, in growing up, I didn't go to school. I'm not from Baltimore. I grew up in North Carolina. I had 2 Black male teachers in 12 years. So that representation is a really big thing too. Somebody has to kind of step out and show it, just like the brother said, letting people see that we are out there can make a big difference.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing representation. I'm hearing the criminal justice system exactly kind of deters men because, of course, you go into that system. I'm hearing white women feel as if that they're saving the world and they're coming back into schools. So I'm hearing a lot why I haven't heard anything abusive because I talked to another brother and he said, well, that was a place he was abused. He'll never teach. So, that's what I heard. So, I'm not a man. So we're going to move on and hear from you brothers. Brother Sadiq, come on in here.
So, I was thinking about this, and I'm glad y'all touched on a lot of points. But before I even get into all of that, I want to say that, prior to the Brown v. Board decision, we had plenty of thriving Black communities with Black principals and Black teachers across the nation. So, after Brown v. Board, just simply put, because a lot of the integrated communities didn't trust Black teachers and principals to be in their schools or run their schools, I think over 90% of all the Black principals across the United States lost their jobs. And I think at least over 50% of all the Black teachers were out of their jobs after Brown v. Board in the mid 60s. I think it was a place called Topeka, Kansas. It was like one of the thriving Black academic hubs in the South that was full of Black principals and teachers, had a massive decline. And I think the Brown v. Board decision kind of decimated that academic community. So, and there were upticks and downticks from, post 70s and 80s of Black men in particular, Black teachers in general, but Black men specifically in education. But generally speaking, you got to start thinking about the politics and economics behind it all. We also touched on just the mindset. So when we talk about like white women being such a large demographic in education, you got to understand that also does come from a place of privilege because of how, the rhetoric that's out there about education and how there's a lack, like most people say like, oh, teachers don't get paid. That's kind of like the general sentiment for most people if you're not, in that environment to really know. So now, if you have a community of people, a population of people who are, underserved in regards to economics and don't have a lot of money, like the brother said earlier, you're not necessarily going to put yourself in a career that isn't supposedly going to earn you enough capital to be a player out here. So I think that mindset, just like, people said before, that mindset is going to drop people into other careers. People think, law school, people think, business or medicine, but they're not thinking education as a means to provide for their families. So that's going to be a big deterrent in regards to people getting an education. So, and to go back to white women, if I'm a person that has an affluent family, I have the privilege to be able to give something back. I'm coming from a different economic background, so there's a level of comfort that I can have to kind of choose the career path because my family isn't dependent solely upon me to provide for everybody because there's already that wealth built up in my family. So I think that will play a large role. On top of all the other social economic factors, those are just, it's a complex question. I think there's a lot of angles that you can look at it, and different people are going to have varying perspectives on it. But generally, I would just say from a sociological perspective, there's a lot of strings being pulled that'll pull people away from it, if that makes any sense.
And I'm not laughing at you. Kennedy is moving around, so it's funny. But what you're saying is amazing that like white women, or they come from a position of privilege and they really can just teach because they really don't have to worry about what they're being paid or because everything is stable in their lives. So teaching is something to get, that makes a lot of sense, I'm coming to you, Brother Goodwin. I know you're the administrator, so I want to get all the teachers here. So, Brother Kay, I'm not gonna mess your name up. Karaji.
You're gonna try.
Karaji. Brother Karaji. Come on. Talk to us. Make us laugh too.
What? Now, see, that's not what I'm here for, all right?
You're right.
It's not what I'm here for. See, my style of comedy is more political in nature and more racial, so I might use the N-word or something like that, but nothing other than that. No, if you ask me, like he was saying, with I hate really talking about our own condition and trying to like speak of others like in the process, like talking about, well, white women are doing this and other people are doing that. But it is important to say that a lot of like the teaching profession is dominated by women. A lot of from my experience, a lot of people use teaching as a either stepping stone for something larger, right? Or they use it as a almost like a placeholder. Like a lot of people come in, they get that maternity leave, and they wear it out. All right, a lot of people come in and have their kids on the teacher dime. But as far as like us and the decisions that we make as black men, I would say that like I went to a HBCU because I'm from a very rural area. It's like Tea Party land in Virginia, King William, Virginia, and they I wanted to like be around people more like us, right? And in those travels, I joined fraternity. In my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, I look at my line brothers kind of like as a cross section of us as a people. And it's 9 of us, right? And I'm like the brokest amongst all of us. You know what I mean? And that's kind of a thing. Like people who are making the best the best grades, who are doing whatever, they want to be fairly compensated for that. And I think that uh, the higher amounts of money people can make in education, like I never heard about any of that or never knew any of those types of avenues. And it's not something that's really pushed us. What they tell us either you got a wicked jump shot or sling it, crack rock, whatever. You know what I mean? Like a lot of our choices seem like they're made for us. And unfortunately, if I look, I'm talking about my experience with my buddies in college. If I talk about my buddies from high school, it was maybe like 15, 16 black males in my graduating class. And, I mean, the world got us good. Like at least half of us, spent time, not me, but spent time in jail. Got caught up trying to like fit that narrative that I was just talking about, where people feel like we have to be this thing, which isn't anything that is like a teacher. All right, if you're a teacher, it's like you're being aberrant as a black male.
I'm hearing that the marketing to the black male is not really there. So they're not, you don't even know that that's a profession that you can go into. So, wow. All right. So, Brother
I
Goodman.
related to what my brother said a minute ago. I had like 2 black male teachers from the time I was in kindergarten until I graduated high school.
Yeah.
And I will say that one of the black male teachers I had, Calvin Sorrell, was a graduate of Virginia State University. All right, and he made me want to go to a black school and play in that band and jump around and dance and march. Made me want to be a part of the culture.
I get it. I get it. And I only had one black male teacher too in my whole 12 years.
Wow.
So Kareem, you're in the administrative side and you hire.
Mhm.
So I want to hear your standpoint of why black men aren't teaching.
I'll give you my perspective as a teacher, and then I'll give you my perspective as an administrator. So
Sure.
for me, I always wanted to be a teacher. Like there was nothing else that I ever wanted to be. Even when I was in high school, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So for me, my path was always in that direction. And like the gentleman said, if you want to be an English teacher, you like to read, you like to write, you want to do math. Well, that was me. I love to read and I love to write. So me being an English teacher was a natural thing for me. Um, I I agree with what a lot of the brothers said is that you know it's not marketed, it's not told for us, the benefits of being a teacher. So, when I went to Delaware State University, my advisor, Dr. King, he told me that, you can basically, write your own ticket in education as a black male. And that was the first time. I was already in education, but that was the first time was like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Like because, there aren't many of us, you know, I have an opportunity to, basically write my own ticket. And that doesn't happen in many fields. We talk about law, we talk about medicine, and although those uh employment opportunities have a lot of, potential for compensation, you don't have the opportunity to move up as fast. So for me, you know, with education, I make a really good salary. you know, as an administrator. You know, being as though there's not a lot of black administrators either. So you know, they want black administrators. So you can make a really good, you can really make lot of good finances in regards to, teaching. But there's also a whole bunch of incentive. You know, you don't work during the summer. Me being an educator, my second master's degree was free. The university that I work at now, my charter school is connected to a university, so I'm able to go to obtain my PhD for free. My children can go to various colleges for free. There's a lot of incentives around education that young men don't know about. Right. And although there are not a lot of us in a profession, when you are in a profession, being a black man does have some perks. Yeah. A lot of perks, and it's just not told to us. So, like once my advisor told me that, he was like, well, you'll only be teaching for 3 years and you can be in administration. Obviously, I taught longer than that because I love being in the classroom. But, that stuck in my mind of like, you can live a good life and take care of your family. And there's so many other incentives to it that, aren't told to our young people. When I taught at Overbrook High School, I was a young teacher. I drove a Cadillac, and my students were like, "You drive a Cadillac? Like, you're a teacher?" Like, yeah, here's how you can do the same thing, and you can live a really good life off a teacher's salary, especially if you're in different districts. So I think it's just not told to us as young people that education is a viable tool for you to do a lot of things, for you to get advanced degrees, for you to provide for college educations for your family. I have a few rental properties. That's for my salary and education. Like, a lot of that stuff isn't taught to our young people to see that education is a viable option for them for employment. From an administrative standpoint, there aren't a lot of us in the field from a teaching standpoint. So I have to, be creative, and send my job description to Cheney, send my job description to Lincoln, to let educators know that that I'm hiring. So it's very hard to find us brothers, but the brothers that are in education, they need some support. Me and Mr. Parker talking about it all the time. I'm myself, I'm administrative, but I struggled with the praxis for a while, which is the teacher certification exam. Yeah. That put barriers. I've been to a lot of job fairs where I've met some decent brothers, but they don't have that piece, and that's a barrier that's stopping a lot of males in education as well that want to be teachers, but then they have this barrier that then they decide to go in another field, or they just try to do some other things. So I mean, I think that needs to be looked at as well too.
What'd you say?
Well, it's a teacher.
Educate. What is that?
Yeah, the praxis. It's a teacher certification exam. So it's a teacher certification exam, and like I said, I've taught for years. I'm an administrator now, but the math portion,
is a beast.
it took me out.
Yeah.
I had to actually hire a tutor to pass that, and I was failing by 1 or 2 points. The English part, I breezed through that. So I find a lot of brothers that are really good, and I really want them in my school, but then they don't have the certification. Yeah. And then that's a barrier as well to to having us having us in education. And I think that's something that we need to look at. Really supporting brothers. Going like the gentleman said. Going to the middle schools. I've even taken it a step further of going to the colleges and meeting with the education majors in the department and providing some type of tutoring support, because I'm a dinosaur, so when I took the test, it was like $150. Now it's like $300-400. So that's another. That's another ploy and barrier they put in front of us. Because you can't afford to fail. Right. And I even back then, even though it was $150, I couldn't afford to fail it that many times. But I was, I knew this was what I was, destined to do. So I kept pushing forward. But think about how many brothers, that we talked about that, need to provide finances for their family immediately, or some students that that just don't have that resilience to continue to take the test. I would suggest that we start doing something where we can bring some tutoring back to help those brothers, because we're losing brothers that way as well too.
Yeah.
So they have a certification.
That test is there to block black men from teaching, and that's just my personal opinion.
So you get out of school you finish your degree, if you get your master's, whatever,
Right.
and now you have to take a certification exam to
Yeah.
teach.
Yep.
That is harder
Yeah.
than your schooling. Are you telling me that?
Yeah. And now they have a new
Correct.
one. They have a new one now that's even worse. The
Why
new
are
one
we
that
doing?
they have.
Well, where does this come from? Is this the Board of Education? Is this coming
Princeton.
federally down? Where does this come from?
Comes from Princeton.
Wow.
Yeah, it comes from
Call them
Princeton.
out. Call them out. Those the Ivy Leagues, Brother Sadiq. You know about them? Okay, let's move on. Penn State. All right, so that's really that's concerning to me that they create this we creating barriers, for greatness, and I think that's concerning that you're saying the math portion is hard.
Yeah.
That's really concerning, that they have something like that out there. I didn't know that. Okay, so I heard a lot of reasons why Black men aren't teaching, but I do want to delve into this 80% population of white women, and we're in a society right now that has shined a tremendous light on racism. We know it's there. We experience it every day. But now it seems like it's sexy to talk about racism. In other words, if I can put it any more in layman's terms. And so these young males who go to school and teachers, you see the women and the people who are calling the police. A lot of these are white women. And so you have to then, in turn, go to school. You have to teach alongside them, and you have Black boys who are being instructed by these women. So what kind of environment is in the school for Black males to even thrive, and Black girls, to say the least, with this type of population being the number one population in education? Is that an issue, or is that something that is okay for Black people? And Black
I'd like to speak to that for a second as well. So talking about a hostile learning environment, if all of us go back to our first year teaching, green, bushy, bright-eyed, and hoping to really make a strong impact, what we found was there was not, talk about recidivism, there was not really a set manual on how to orientate you, other than just the general classroom rules and regulations. But remember, it's unspoken, but there's a lot more expected from Black male teachers, especially in the new year. So I had bouts with my administrator wanting me to be the hallway monitor, wanted me to do cafeteria duty, wanted me to do things which all new teachers have to get shuffled into. But the problem with that is it never leaves you. You always become the school police to a degree, because
You're the bouncer.
yeah, because Black men are supposed to be the last stop when it comes to discipline. However, Queen, here's the trap. It's a tightrope, because if you ever go too far physically, you are on your own 100%. I worked at St. Francis Academy. I was very fortunate because I was also, like the brother, a wrestling coach, and I was the track coach. My first year, I'm gonna change the world. So everything that I thought I could bring to the school, I did that, only to find out that the pay is not going to be equivalent to the effort that you put out. So I found out on the DL that my assistant track coach, who was a Caucasian, was actually being paid more than me. I found out that I don't know, I guess I'm not going to say being disciplined or written up or demerits, but it was looked on negatively because I did not want to spend my extra periods policing the hallway as opposed to being prepared. I wanted to use that time creatively to be prepared for the next class coming in. But if I wasn't on hallway patrol, or if I wasn't doing the things that Black men should do in general, it was seen as a negative. But I'll say this, I was fortunate. I got away with some things because I was the wrestling coach. because putting hands on children, even to break up fights, as a black man becomes very sticky, especially when there are females involved. If there's two females involved, you really got to go try to find a female administrator or a female teacher. But you're placed in those situations constantly. And if you don't do anything and something bad happens, they're kind of looking at you side-eyed like you're a man and you watch that happen. However, you are on your own if you go too far, and that becomes a lawsuit in some situations, because black men can't do the same things that cute white girls could do, little blue-eyed bushy white girl. You can't do it. You can't do it and get away with it. But those are some of the barriers I want to speak to. There's no committee to welcome you. There's no orientation for that. And nobody pulls you aside unless you have some older gentleman teaching and says, hey, listen, this is the better way to handle that. I know you wanted to jump in there, gung-ho, and stop that fight, but this was a better way to do that. So longevity as a teacher, I mean, forget about how many teachers are not being hired. There's also a problem with recidivism, because you might be a well-intended black male teacher, but if nobody guides you through, the maze, you're subject to be caught out there.
Wow, that's a whole new deal. I didn't even think. So they're using you guys as the police in the school. My goodness.
Pretty much.
Another thing that
Never knew that. Go ahead, Karajan.
It's two things. It kind of works for you and against you in certain ways, right? Because of the patriarchy, there's going to be a lot of average people who kind of can get promoted if you just can wear the suit and and say all the correct things at the correct times.
True.
So there's almost like a certain way you can advance. As a black man, you have to like play the fit. You have to play a certain role.
Absolutely.
And if you do that, they'll give you the keys to the city. So it's a way, like if you're just normal black man, they like go in there, break up the fight. But if you're a certain black man, if you got on the bow tie or something, they're like, I don't know, let me hear what this brother got to say. It's like they treat you different.
Right.
And
you're
then
in charge of student government then.
Right. They start giving you stuff. They want you to be their Obama or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Not in the cafeteria.
Right.
No, never in the cafeteria.
Right. But we also are like victims to the I guess school is just a microcosm of the rest of the world and the rest of the country. So is in the end, it's like we're there and people are afraid of us in some aspects. So if we're in a professional setting, we voice concerns and we say things that people don't like, or we use the wrong tone, stuff goes left really, really fast. Really fast. So you always gotta watch.
Break that down. Go into the
like if somebody brings smoke to you and you in turn return fire in any way, I don't care who it is.
There you go.
Right. You are held to a much higher standard than anybody else in that building. So it's a little bit, I found it off-putting at first, like I said, because you're supposed to be, they want to use your body. They want to use your body. They want it to get in the way of things. Like you said, put you in the hall, break up stuff. But when you use your voice, and that's when people kind of have a problem, usually because, like I said, it's predominantly a female environment, or it's all mostly women. And what you're saying has to go through a filter, I think, and it's like it can come across as aggressive. It can come across as ignorant, because sometimes we're ignorant. And that's something else that can come in. If you if we say something and it's not in the way you're supposed to say it professionally, and you could be walking the plank right then and there, and somebody would be calling security on you.
Wow.
I think from a minute
any of this is happening in a school setting for black men. So it's bringing a lot of light out. Akil, you are a light-skinned brother. So, and I ain't putting no colorism on him, bro. Real talk. I'm just being real. So when you
are you though? Are you not doing? Are you not?
I gotta say it. This is real talk. So, Akil, you come in, you're the creamy brother. So, do they have a problem with you? Do you have some of the issues with the white girls? Are they thinking you aggressive? How's your space in school? Talk to us. Real talk.
So traditional high school settings, dealing with, like I teach in a high school now, but it's a night school program for adult learners. But when I was in a traditional high school setting, I pretty much I continued on with what I was taught and conditioned to do as a young man. Like I pretty much I stay away from white women. Like I know about I learned about image that influences how I interact with people. And anyway, so a lot of it is I tend to keep my distance and try to keep it professional anyway. But then as I developed throughout my career, I became, I guess, more alienated from colleagues, or most of my colleagues, because when I realized that, this is this building, it's neo-colonial, it's it's oppressive, it's a plantation. So then you have teachers that want to serve to maintain that and just get their paycheck. They want to be company men and company women, and I recognize it because when I first started teaching, I was the company man. So that led to a lot of animosity between me and the students, right? Because you're kind of put in this position where you're kind of like in some cases you're like the prison guard, right? You're like
overseer.
Exactly, right?
Right.
Wow.
But then when you realize, like, okay, I see what's going on, then you have to make a decision. It's like Frantz Fanon says, like, when you're exposed to the truth, you only have two choices. You can either deny the truth or you can affirm it. There's no in between, right? So when you affirm the truth, you say, okay, well, I know this is going on, so now I got to make a choice. So I started I became more of an advocate for my students, which then puts you at odds with other teachers and other administrators. And some of it is just petty jealousy, because then what happens is you become like the cool teacher, or you become the teacher that the students like. And then it's like the other teachers, instead of, well, what is Mr. Parker doing? How's he able to establish such a rapport with the youth and with the students? It's like, oh, you're too friendly with them, or you must not be doing your job, or you're not teaching.
Right.
They always want to hang out in your class because you don't have no discipline, you don't have no classroom management, because it's a jungle in there. You just let anything go, and it's like, no, it's not like that. What it is I think about W.E.B. Du Bois and his work with sociology. And he always said, I begin all my studies with the fundamental assumption that the African is a human being. So many institutions in our society begin with the opposite of that. The fundamental assumption that the African is not a human being, that the African is a savage, as the youth like to say a lot, throw that term around, not really understanding the real impact and the history of that term. So when as a teacher, once you do that, you begin, with this idea that, my students are human beings. You're going to treat them a certain way. And when you really sit back and you take into account and you look at the other teachers, you look at administrators, look at how they're interacting with the students, it's like, you don't even believe in their humanity. Like, so then what happens, and then again, it's another part of it is, and I guess this all speaks to like why, like, I kind of have, in many cases have had like kind of like a and a lot of colleagues, is because when you become a teacher and you're developing relationships with students, you're seeing them every day, 5 days a week for like months and months. And then some students you teach year after year, if you stay in the same school, you teach them in different classes. And then you develop you become an old head, and they designate you their old head. You don't even have to designate yourself. They designate you because now they feel comfortable with you. So then you have that like parental relationship or that big brother relationship. And then it's like a different dynamic because now there's emotion attached to it. Because now if you see this teacher being goofy and being like oppressive, like it's like, because I'm like, I wouldn't let nobody treat my little brother like that. I wouldn't let nobody treat my child like that. So it's almost like, but then you got to catch yourself, because it's like you'll see situations where it's like, okay, if that was my child, I'd probably smack the piss out of her, right? But it's not my biological child, but I still feel that way though. I still want to smack the piss out of her. So at a minimum, I got to keep my distance. Let me just stay in my classroom. Okay, you work your side of the street, I work mine. And, my students are going to know that they're going to be safe when they come around me. And I'm going to also let them know, like, listen, what she did is not right. What he did is not right. I'm going to be honest with them. And another thing is, like, on the high school level, it lends itself to having these more like candid and mature conversations anyway, So in terms of like the white women, I pretty much, a lot of them I keep my distance from them, and I keep it professional. Like if I need something, some resources or whatever, okay, let me get this, let me get that, keep it moving. I do know a lot of situations where some of the brothers come into the schools and they'd be a little bit too friendly with them. And I sit back and I watch it and I'm like, nah, bro, chill. Like you're doing too much, man. Like, and are you taking into consideration how, what type of relationship she has with the students? Like, because then what it does, it puts you in a position where, like the brother brought up, how we end up being like the, like the muscle or like the bouncer, right?
Right.
Dynamic where you end up having to protect the white women from the students who are regarded as savages. So there's this idea that the students are savages. So then you as the black buck, now your job is, there's this expectation. You're going to protect these fragile white women from these horrible, horrific students that they don't want to teach anyway, but they need that check every 2 weeks. They need them summers off and them checks still coming in so they can go hang out at the shore or wherever they go and whatever they do.
Tell it, Akil. I think you're telling it. You brought that one. All right, Sadiq. I know you used to the Penn State, the 80% white women, bruh. This is something that you acclimated to.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
talk to us. How does it feel in school teaching alongside that population and how the effects on Black children? Real talk.
So, like Akil says, education is kind of neo-colonial. Like I've been on both sides as a teacher, and I did administration for like a year, and I realized I had to step back and get back into the classroom because I realized it wasn't for me, and that changed my perspective a lot. At the end of the day, you realize that schools are agents of the state. They're not really these independent pockets where they can kind of mold or move freely. They still have to answer to somebody. So even when I was an administrator, my perspective, I couldn't necessarily do the things that I thought was right because I had to serve the school. And I used to wrestle with that a lot, which is why I went back to the classroom, because I felt like I actually had more agency to touch the students in a way that I believe that they needed. But I would say that it's a hostile environment. I think education, the culture of education is dangerous to Black students. I think that, so for example, I heard people say they had to act professional, right? And I understand what that means, like at face value, but what does that really mean? Literally. So, like using certain words or, your ability to articulate a point, that has to be done in a certain way. Otherwise it's deemed beneath someone else based on, European standards. So I can tell a kid that I can say, hey, Tom, I don't like how you're treating me today. Or I could say, Tom, I think you're drawn today, right? Now, the context is both the same. I think the student's doing something they're not supposed to do and they need to relax. You're trying to redirect the student. But if I don't use specific language, or if I don't portray that in a way that, the principal or someone else will understand it, it can be abrasive. And you can become that other, kind of like Akil was talking about. Like, I'm kind of, even like when I think about my career now in a transitioning state, I used to be somebody who wanted to be a part of like the school leadership committees, and I wanted to be an assistant principal. I wanted to become a principal. I took my principal cert, and that's kind of like the path that I was going down. And like the further I got into administration, the more I realized, for me personally, because I don't think this is general, I don't want to generalize, but for me personally, I feel like I got farther away from what I wanted to do in regards to just being able to speak to the students that I have directly, because I feel as though if I can't be face to face with my students, the message can get like missed and watered down in regards to basically trying to portray the urgency in which they need to live their lives to reach the success that they say that they want to reach. Just because the environment is hostile. And it's so like it's so many thoughts coming to my mind right now, as far as like, you have racist testing policy, like we talked about the praxis. So like right now in Pennsylvania, you got the PSSA, and the PSSA scores dictate what type of middle or high school that you go to, which can dictate the quality of your education. Certain students from certain neighborhoods, if they can articulate themselves in a certain way, they might be able to pull certain strings, where the very next students who just as deserving doesn't receive the same benefits. And I just think educational equality is not only financial, which is what everybody talks about, but it's largely cultural. And if you're cut from a certain cloth or you're from a certain neighborhood, it's going to be hard for you to navigate yourself. So me being somebody who was born in the projects, even though I went to college on a full scholarship and I got my master's degree and I got my certification, you can't, you can take the brother out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the brother. So, the way I carry myself makes you can become a part of the opposition. And like you said, you can become kids' old head and the kids can gravitate towards you, but people might deem it unprofessional and you could become alienated. So now
they calling you OG.
Yeah, you gotta make a choice. Like, do I want to put my bow tie on, put my tie on every day, or can I wear my Wu-Tang shirt and my Phillies fitted? And why am I less than of an educator because I decided to carry myself a certain way or carry myself in a way that's comfortable for me? And it just makes it, being true to self is difficult. And some people can choose to leave. And it's hard to, stand 10 toes down in an environment that that's not dominated by you or might not necessarily be for you. And still try to help serve kids, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that myself still. Do I put the bow tie on just to give myself a leg up to have the opportunity, or do I stay true to myself and do what I believe is best, knowing that it might put my job at risk and I end up might not touching them, being a teacher at all. It's a tough dynamic to be in.
You said a lot, but I'm hearing that the culture in school is there's no culture for the Black culture, and it's a hostile environment for Black children. And so is there a way that they can flourish? But I don't want to go there yet. I want to stay where we at, the 80% Karen, white women in the school.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add something? So I think also whenever I'm a part of these conversations, I also want to be abundantly clear that the solution is not to reform this, because this can't be reformed, right? It's
right.
like,
before we even say that, let's not do that.
I just want to be clear for anybody that's watching, anybody that's listening. The ultimate solution is for us to just have our own independent schools that we fully control, we fully finance, we fully operate. It's grounded in African culture, and that we're fully in control of, where we won't even have to have. I mean, it's not gonna be easy. It's not utopian or none of that. So I don't want to anybody to be confused about that. But it's like an issue of choose your heart. Fitting into these schools and being educators in these spaces is hard anyway. It's difficult. There are many challenges. Developing a network of independent schools for our children, where our children can be emotionally safe and physically safe, and is also difficult. But I'd rather, it's a greater potential for benefit in the independent space, and that with that second alternative, So I just want to be clear, if anybody listening, like we're not going to change white people. We're not, and and even if we could, it's not our job to change them. That's on them. We need to go do our thing. A lot of times, a lot of the conversations, I don't think this one is really like that, but a lot of the conversations end up, even in critiquing them, we end up centering them. So we to be clear about, what the issues are and what we have to deal with, because the reality is right now, our children that we care about, that we love, and we take responsibility for, are in these spaces controlled by them. But I think it's all about end game. You know what I mean? Like end game. If the end game is just to fix these schools, you're going to move a certain way. But if your end game is like, all right, well, yeah, we might need to tweak some things right now because that's where we happen to be. But the end goal is like that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we won't have to have these same conversations, or my son won't be somewhere having these conversations when he's 30 or he's 40, then we're going to move a different way. And I just hope that our end game is full, all out, complete independence,
I love that,
because I just think I know that's got to be the way. It's got to be the way, and it's not going to be easy. It's not. But this right here is not easy either. So It's not like this is sweet and this is cool, and it's like, oh, man, we on the plantation. You really want to run away? It's gonna be hard. You got to make your way all the way north. Like bro, it's not cool on the plantation. So while we might have to be on the plantation for now, I just want us to be clear that we gotta have that end game clear, all out independence, full control. Everything we do, we're responsible for.
from start to finish, top to bottom, left to right.
Independent
throw that
school.
out there.
I love that.
I'm kind of a different thinking though on that.
Let me ask you. Wait a minute, Karaji, because you already spoken. So let somebody who didn't speak. Right? Hold on for a second. Hold on, brother. G, so you're in alternative spaces, as you say. Right. So how do you feel about that dynamic? Because you work closely with white women, which is we're not attacking white women. We're talking about the percentages.
Talking about white women a whole lot, though.
Their space inside of school. So we're talking about them because they're 80% a part of education, and we need to talk about it. So how do you feel about that, G?
I don't feel any specific way about it. I don't, it doesn't really, I'm pretty independent.
Okay.
I run my own program, and I don't have a lot of people who I have to answer to for the way that I do things.
Oh, you free, bro. You free.
So, I mean, I understand exactly. I think one of the most important point about the moment that we're in now that I think is a great way to kind of frame this is all of the challenges that are in the system, all the ways that the education system is broken in general has been exposed by what's going on. And it's a point where everything has been reimagined. So if you're talking about making a move towards different models of education and doing things independently, this is a window to get motion in that direction, because right now the traditional system is under assault because of, the way that education had to shift during the pandemic and all the different ways that people had to learn and all of the ways that things had to be adjusted. There are a lot of things that are on the table now in terms of the way that people learn and the way that people apply their learning to their careers and to their lives. A lot of stuff is on the table now that might not have been on the table had we not gone through the situation that we've gone through. So, sometimes the turmoil that we're in a given moment, whether it's the unrest in the cities around the country or the pandemic, some things that would have happened in 10 years happen in 2 in the midst of all of those things that are happening. So it's a moment that can be seized. And it's a great opportunity for people to, take the power that's available to you. When the table gets flipped, everything is up in the air. So you got choices to make at that point, how you want to rebuild. It's clear that when things get flipped over and things get messed up, it's got to be put together somehow. And then, that I see it as an opportunity.
I love that. That's coming from a free African. Y'all heard that, free teacher? That's a free African right there. So, all right. So, Steve, come on in here and
before we do that, though, I think that maybe if Karaju's point isn't made now, it might get lost in context.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, brother. Thank you, Brother G. Go ahead, Karaju. Do you?
Brother Floyd, you're good, bro. No, I think that as Black people, we constantly find ourselves caught between the public versus private argument, and whether or not it's better for us to build things in our own spaces, or whether it's better for us to make the overall system work, right? And I'm kind of more along the lines of I think it was Baldwin or somebody. It's we kind of got to make the system work, It's kind of because in the end it ends up like Oklahoma, like Black Wall Street. We build up whatever, we know what the end result is. If you get something and it works good, then you just become easy pickings for that larger group, But by using the laws and the different things that white people have created, but I guess they don't typically have the moral high ground to create the laws that they create, but then they create it, and then it ends up being the thing we can get them more, right? So they say everybody's free, even though they don't mean it, right? We can then turn around and then use the things and the laws that they put in place to kind of get them in check, because historically they don't show any predilection to change themselves. It's almost like we're the conscience of America. It's if we're not here to constantly remind them of where we've been, right? Then we all end up in the ditch.
You done flipped the conversation. I love it. But that's amazing. That is totally amazing. Wow. You said so. Keep the system, Brother Kill said, flip the system. You said,
Right. Like I like Biden's cool. I don't really rock with Kamala, but these are the means by which we make change. That's all we got. So it's
oh,
like it's a
here we
sad
go.
flop forward into progress.
You done put a whole new biscuit in the pot. Here we go. You been in politics. All right. So we're gonna come back to that. Brother Steve, I want to hear, and I want to hear Brother Kareem's take on the population of schools and how you are navigating that with our children.
Well, I was right across the street from St. Francis Academy at the new $30 million green school for the juveniles that are creating these felonies.
Yeah.
And
That's a prison.
yeah, I'm at the end of the pipeline over there.
Yeah.
And if you're from Baltimore, you know what happened out in the county.
Yeah.
And I had all three of them. I had all three of them.
County. You got to give us context. People don't know. This is people in Japan don't know what happened in Baltimore County.
The three kids, they didn't go to school. They were, well, two of them were really smart young men, and their schools weren't supporting them, and they weren't the safe havens that they needed in their lives. And they went out one day and they found a fancy of breaking into homes. And they encountered one home invasion and they almost got caught. And one of the kids accidentally killed an officer, ran the officer over. I had all three of those kids in my classroom.
And they killed her, right? It was a lady and they killed her.
Yes.
Yeah,
she died.
She died.
One of those kids was at my school. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's out? Okay.
No, he went to.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And interacting with these kids, and when they turn 18, they leave us. They leave us the day before their birthday and they go on and serve their sentence. And the three boys that I had, they were phenomenal. They could write, especially this one. He was just phenomenal. He could write, he could reason, but it was just that one day he said he could redo. He would have done some things differently. As a teacher, I think a teacher needs to be engaging. A teacher needs to be everything to that student. That my teachers were that. I had 3 African American teachers during my high school years, and they all impacted me to go into education as well as Ms. Gates. And I feel as though that when you have a teacher that really sees your potential, it's a great thing, because they don't get that, especially if they come in and out, whenever they please, and they don't have the foundations that you and I had. Because remember, growing up in Rochester, New York, I'm a Kodak and Xerox baby. So we always had jobs, Now we're 30 years later, these kids don't have the opportunities that we had.
Sure.
So, it's just really sad for these kids. And then you have these youngsters whom are out there and they call the squeegee kids, and they're doing great things because they don't want to do things that are bad. They just want to make $1 to get to the next day. And society deems them as being bad. And it's just the kids today, they're in this trick bag, and you got to be strong, and you got to have people there to show you strength. And I think that was the reason why I was in that position with those 3 kids. And now that they're adults and serving over 40 years apiece, it's just really, really sad, especially when you're at that end of the pipeline, seeing those kids about to transition into the adulthood and serve these sentences. So the pipeline has really destroyed our community. But we as educators, we have to give them tools necessary to be self-reliant if they get the opportunity to get out and when they get out, by giving them the opportunity to get their high school diplomas. And that was one good thing that my principal at that school allowed my kids to get their high school diplomas. We had night school, we had day school, we even got the kids that were from 18 to 21 in the other parts of the jail involved so they can continue their education. But, you know, with education, it's just, we as educators, we got to be very innovative with our craft and how we're going to deliver what we want to deliver to these kids in a unique fashion. And this last semester was an interesting one because they live in the city of Baltimore, and we are in a gentrification phenomenon here. And each day I would show the kids visually the different types of state-of-the-art buildings that are coming up in their neighborhoods. And the majority of the children that I was dealing with were from the west side of Baltimore. So when they've seen the biopark and when they've seen Century West apartments, they were like, look, where are we gonna stay? So we got to give them tools and supports to navigate through this 21st century. And it's very difficult, but like I say, I still enjoy doing what I'm doing. You know,
let me ask a question. So you're saying there's a school in the prison?
In my school, there was.
Yeah.
It's the juvenile. Yeah, they stay there.
So there's a principal, there's teachers, there's a whole structure of school in prison.
It's a Baltimore City public school inside the jail.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. Wow. So we're talking about prison and education for young people in the same space. Okay. Yeah. All right, because education is liberation.
Yeah, exactly.
So you educate, and it's not that you can't be educated in prison, but the young people, they establish a school inside of the same place where they're being held.
Right.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. All right, Brother Kareem, you're coming from a standpoint of you hire. So you hiring these 80%. So I need to talk to you, bruh. How do you feel about that population? Because you have the choice to decide. And it's not that we should not have white women teachers. I don't want anyone to think that I'm attacking them. I'm just saying what the population is. And so how do you feel about how's that affecting our children per se, being an administrator, principal?
It has a huge impact on our students. You know, representation matters. When you don't see individuals that look like you in front of you, you know, it has a huge impact on your education. And we all know that a huge part of education is relationships. So if you have somebody in front of you that you can't relate to, or that you can't build a relationship with you, it automatically impacts your education. So for me, but you know, like the brother Sadiq said, you know, you have that duality of trying to, you know, stay true to yourself and still be an administrator at the same time. But I think that's what I like the beauty about being an administrator, especially administrator in a charter school, because I'm able to do things that a principal in a district cannot do. I have the leeway to do certain things that allow students to get an education. So if I want to, you know, have students read W.E.B. Du Bois, if I want students to have a performance arts class as opposed to a traditional music class, I can do so, and give them that education that they deserve and that they need. You hire the best candidates that you can to help educate them, and then also, you know, they'll leave. You know, if a teacher doesn't want to teach Du Bois, they're going to leave. If they don't like the culture that you set up, they'll leave. It's really that simple, and you'll find out the teachers that really want to be there for your students really fast when you set a culture and you set a curriculum where you set a tone that they don't, you know, that they don't want to adhere to, right? So, you know, they'll leave. I think that's the beauty, you know, of being an administrator. But I do understand what, you know, Brother Sadiq is saying, you know, because I was at a school where, as an administrator, I didn't fit. because I stayed true to myself. So, they made the decision to go in another direction, but now I'm in a place where, who I am and how I rock as a principal, and the betterment for my students, they love it. They respect me. They support me. Mr. Parker will tell you, I'm a big Chuck guy. I walk around the school with Chucks on because that's who I am. I don't, I might wear shoes some days. I might wear Chucks another day.
Cool, bro. You got Butters in Philly?
Yeah, no, I wear Chuck Taylors all the time.
Oh, you got Chuck guy, Chuck Taylor.
Yeah. But they'll, it's you have to make that tough decision. But I'm on the mindset of you create the culture that you want, and the people that want to be on the ship leave, and the people that want to be on the ship will do what they need to do. It was a hard decision for me to to lead a classroom, because like the other brother said, when I became a dean, that's like the entry level to administrator, and that's the disciplinarian, that's the culture guy, right? So one of my mentors, he said, you can get pigeonholed and stuck being a dean. So I had to prove that I knew academics. I had to prove that I knew instruction, in order, because when you are in administration, you can be pigeonholed as the vice principal of student culture, the vice principal of discipline. So you got to make sure that you don't get pigeonholed in that. But yeah, that's what I like about being an administrator. It was hard to lead a classroom, but I was able to impact. Like, I'm able to impact more, by being able to create policies and create curriculum that represent our students. So that's what I like about about being an administrator. But I do understand that everybody doesn't have that luxury, because I'm in a charter school. So if you in a district, you don't have that luxury to do the different things that I have.
That's a beautiful thing. I think
a lot of people will be in a situation like that. Chappelle's show sketch, when keeping it real goes wrong.
Yeah.
Meet Jamal. He graduated at the top of his class. And then, he go all the way up, and then just one day, just snap, like,
That's real.
And it's always, and then you out there at the gas station, washing windshields.
That's real. So I want to get to what Brother Karaji brought up. He said that we should fix schools, and we should make the schools culturally sensitive to Black children. But Brother Keel said independent is the end game. So how do you guys feel about that? Because I'm more of independent, because we're able to create our own space. But Brother Karaju said once you create your own space, they come in and take it, or they break it up, or whatever. So how you guys feel about that? Kennedy?
I got a mixed bag with that. So just a little bit of backstory. So down in Baltimore, it was a unique culture. And it was a lot of room for independent learning and independent cross training from different disciplines. And the thing that I like to bring into the classroom is, this all might burn down in 5 years. So whether or not we're fighting to maintain the current structure or building our own, there's a particular set of special skills you have to have in either arenas. Where you end up, independent or still a part of the public system, is, that's your acumen to end up there. But if you don't end up in either of those with a particular survival skill, then it's not going to matter if you have an independent or something sponsored by the state. Now, ultimately, it's always better to have your own. Like, nobody want to stay in their mama house forever. Like, you always want to have yours if it's possible. But more importantly than that, I think you have to develop some core skills that would support either area. For example, we did see a lot of, I don't know, I don't even like to use this, what's that term they used to say for Black, I don't even use it no more. But whenever they wanted to describe black children who were in peril, they used to say not
Oh, at risk.
at risk.
Risk
Yeah.
children,
When
yeah, risk.
that
Yeah.
so
That was the
so that
terminology to get all these prison for profits.
right. So understand something. You could get your own school, but if the people driving it are more focused on grant money, it's still going to be the same setup.
Wow.
Now, what you want is people who are driven to turn out independent thinkers with a special skill set. You could do that in the public school, but you're going to fight to do that in a public school. That's not going to be something you can do without hindrance of other teachers feeling jealous or feeling that you're too connected to a student. But that's not going to dissipate and go away, sister, just because you got an independent environment. And I'm for independent, but that's a special kind of environment that must be built with those things in mind, because you could go to Ann Casey right now in Baltimore, and if your grant proposal sound fly enough, you could probably get some people on your board of directors. Like I can get Steve. He got credentials. I can get some people. I can get a few pastors. I can get some people with some heavyweight PhDs behind it. And if they're, as long as they're checking to make sure I'm doing the right thing with the money, guess what? I can do an independent school. But what's the heart of your teaching? Like, are you just wanting to be independent, or are you focusing on those things that would allow your student to be independent afterwards? So that's why I came up with a program called Boys to Men, named after the group. Originally, Steve might know some of this history. Originally, I'm from Boston, and I was a transplant here, came through Morgan. And, Bobby Brown and all those, that was a part of my upbringing. So Boys to Men was the proper way to spin it. Like, look, a maturity program. So anybody who's listening now, amongst our comrade, the fight that you have, because I want to say, I guess I'm being long with it, but I want to say this, that 80% white woman is not really an issue to us in the classroom until you want to do something outside of what the norm is. That's when they become an issue. On an everyday basis, I don't think about them. I don't even think about the fact that those 7 classrooms are white teachers. I don't even think about that, because I'm going to go right to my area and I'm going to be proficient in my area to the point where when I go into the teacher's lounge, if I even go in there anymore, they're going to be asking me, hey, your student Jamal was telling me something you did in class. That's the measurement that I'm going for. I'm trying to be the best teacher they ever had. So I ain't even worried about the whether there's a majority white girls. But I know when you start a program, this is when they become a hindrance. Because now you have to go through all of these checks and balances to do something outside of the norm for your kids. And that's where we see the most problems. When I wanted to take them to an all-black college field trip to the Atlanta field trip, magically we ain't had the budget. But we had the budget for basketball games, for football teams. We became one of the elite football powers in this whole Northeast corridor.
Yep.
But if I said, hey, can we take some interested students to Spelman and Morehouse, they'd say, oh, we don't have the budget. So they become a hindrance when you want to go outside of the norm. But every day, let me say something to you like this, Queen. They don't really bother black men on an everyday basis. They bother you when you're doing something outside of the norm that they don't understand or they can't be better than you at. Because black men are the best when you allow us to corral our group of people together and leave us alone. If you leave us alone, we can do what we're supposed to do. So they don't bother us on an everyday. They bother you when you want to try to challenge the budget. They bother you when you want to do an alternative learning program that's not in the prescribed curriculum. Or they bother you if you don't go through the channels, because keep in mind, the public school system is set up with a lot of people whose jobs are riding on advising you, or they might be auxiliary to your classroom. They might be giving you lesson plans. They might be team teaching. They might be doing all kinds of things that depend on you fitting into their group. So when you start doing this alternative stuff outside, that's when they start saying, wait a minute, that's not what you're supposed to do. But I don't want you to think that we're tortured on a daily basis, because they know who to play with and who not to play with from the rip. They know that, Queen.
Okay, that's a whole new dimension. What you guys think about that, Sadiq? You smiling. What you think about that?
So when they talk about the argument between kind of like our system and independent, I think we should think larger about what independence means. Because like I heard the brother talk about, you're independent until you need a specific grant. Whoever's donating that money really is the one pulling the strings behind the policies and procedures that's going on in a school. So I think independence education isn't dependent upon people in education, but I think the community has to put together practices, mindsets, ideologies, and policies that will help fund our own schools and hospitals and supermarkets and real estate and land. Independence isn't, you can't do it in a vacuum. Otherwise, you like that. And that's kind of, I don't think we're talking about independence in that vacuum, because that is impossible. When we talk about independence and education, we need to be talking about becoming independent entities within the nation. It is quasi-political, but I think independence can be independent of politics in a way, because there are various communities that move independently secretly. I know there's people who are proponents of like Black nationalism and things like that, and I don't disagree with that, but that's not even what I'm talking about. I do think that we can find a means or a way to gain our independence in a secular sense. So, for example, and this is kind of utopian, but for example, it could be Floyd Mayweather donating $60 million to so-and-so program to open up a small town in Tulsa or anywhere. There's just certain things that brothers around the country are doing. So when I think about independence, I'm thinking largely about communal independence, and then how that communal independence is going to impact education. I don't think we can do that in a vacuum, nor should we. I do think we need to be independent holistically to really achieve what we want, which I think is the larger end goal of why we became educators in the first place.
I like that. So you're saying independence has to be partnered with the community of independence.
Right.
Well, the banks, the food, the community that we live in. It can't just be the school on this independent space and then everybody's dependent on the other part.
Exactly.
I get that. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. All right. You opened this box, Brother Karaju. So let me hear what you got to say. You opened it. So talk to us.
It's just the box we all live in. I'm just acknowledging it. That's it.
You're right.
Right. Because right now we kind of living in a time where the majority has used charter schools and different methods to basically resegregate the school system. So we're now as separated as we were, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And I think the error that we make, because like I said, I think we're kind of like the conscience, right, of the country and whatnot. I think the error we make is when we try to find solutions in like white people's nonsense. Like if you are doing what white folk are doing as a fix for whatever your problem is, that's not going to get solved. It's like, so if they want to all break off and start their own schools and, and start have their own curriculums, right? And we look up 20, 30 years and look at Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, like the people who are the most strident in those efforts, right, are seeing like a softness in the head that's become associated with their entire system, and I think if we try to, it's kind of like you see black people run around now trying to like, we're going to start a black NRA. It's like, what? So we can shoot each other too? It's like if you're talking like all those different things, it's like white folk have been doing that for the last, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, starting little militia groups and teaching the kids all types of nonsense. And I kind of feel us like on that precipice where everybody is kind of leaning that way, and I think that the real answer is just a little bit more uh, delicate, and it requires a little more finesse. Like there's no intelligent design in racism. It's usually like just a hardened form of stupidity that white people just kind of take advantage of, right? And the way how we've been able to survive and thrive in this country is because when we basically go above and beyond, we exceed expectations, we have to do all these other things instead of like actually like maybe learning the system, right? And then trying to manipulate it.
But yeah, you said you don't want to hear none of that. The end game is independent. So this brother, he brought something out, and I get it. I don't know about the I think we do need, I don't think we need the NRA, but I think we have to arm ourselves in some way. When someone's hunting you, you got to stop that hunt. So
But if it's Elmer Fudd and you see he keeps shooting himself in the head and shooting himself in the foot, just let him.
Well, I ain't gonna shoot myself. Yeah, if you come up in here, you're not gonna get shot in the foot, bro. So anyway, brother Kill, you said independent. You said that's the end game for schooling, for education, for Black children, because really this is about children flourishing, and I don't see our children flourishing. So what do you think about kind of repairing the system and working within it? Do you feel anything about that?
I mean, it's essentially, I think of Huey Newton. I mean, like I let history like dictate. Like, I think of Huey Newton and the Black Panther Party. Like their 10-point plan,
Mm-hmm.
it was a survival plan pending revolution. So they understood that the real goal is revolution. But these are just some things we're gonna do right now because our people got to eat today. To go visit their loved ones in prison today. They need sickle cell testing today. They need a free breakfast program because public schools weren't offering breakfast to the students. So they're going to school, stomach growling, hungry, can't really focus. So he's like, we're doing this today. But in terms of fixing, yeah, I'm kind of over like overall again, end game. I think the end game is key. And I think that, kind of like what Sadiq alluded to is that we can't look at this within a vacuum. There's been a debate within the Black community since Africans were brought, and of course, Africans were traveling across the Atlantic Ocean prior to the Mayaf and the transatlantic slave trade and everything. But since the slave trade began and we set foot on this continent or this landmass, there's been a political debate among us between integrationism and nationalism. So, and it plays itself out in all different aspects of our existence. Even if you talk about like, Martin Delany, who's seen as the grandfather of Black nationalism by some in the 19th century, So, education is just one of those battlefronts. And I think that we gotta be independent because, when you look at the amount of effort and energy and labor and intellectual labor and emotional labor that will be expended trying to fix this. And we've never seen any real examples of it being fixed. And I don't think we should, and when we study more of the history and see like how a lot of the efforts that people are putting forth even today, like it's been done before, like, Ocean Hill, Brownsville in the 1960s, because it is a valid argument when for a person to say, well, you know what, I go to work, and I pay payroll taxes. I pay state taxes. My taxes go to support this school. So if I divest from this school, then I need my money. I need my tax dollars. So what they did in Ocean Hill, Brownsville is attempt to push for community control of the schools. But then we get into the issue with, the Black community gets into the issue with the Jewish community in Brooklyn. And they don't want to give up that power and that control. They don't want to allow the Black, Black women in the community or, Black fathers and Black mothers in the community to decide who's going to be the principal of the school, who's going to be the teachers in the school, because they want to maintain that power, right? So then a lot of those people then go off and say, well, we got to just build our own thing, and we should build our own thing. But here's the thing: like the brother brought up Tulsa, And we can learn a lot from Tulsa. We can learn a lot from all of the communities that we're thriving and that we controlled and own. But one of the things that we have to take away from those experiences is that you have to be able to protect whatever you own. And I think that's a very important conversation about knowing, being able to protect things and not underestimating your enemies and who they are and what they're capable and willing to do. And I think that's oftentimes, a lot of times we're too, quote unquote, well, I guess it goes to your definition of morality. Like, what is your definition of morality? Is it moral to just let somebody shoot you? Sometimes, and not that our ancestors haven't done that. Our ancestors have always been fighting. We've always been fighting. Charles Cobb has the book, We Will Shoot Back. Not We Will Shoot Back. That's somebody else. That nonviolent stuff will get you killed is the title of his book, talking about how if it wasn't for brothers and sisters that had guns, the civil rights movement would have never happened. But just the way that it's marketed, as if we were just marching, we were just on Edmund Pettus Bridge getting hit in the head with bricks. That's not really the whole story. So I just think we definitely have to be able to protect whatever we build and whatever we create. And I think these are the conversations that we have to be having with young people, with kindergarten students and first grade students and middle school students, in terms of like developing for the future. Because as the late John Henrik Clarke said, the purpose of education is to train youth to be responsible handlers of power. This is really about power. This is not even really about racism. Racism is a tangential issue. Racism is secondary. When you have power, the racism becomes irrelevant. As Kwame Ture said, if a white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. But if the white man has the power to lynch me, that's my problem. And right now, and for a very long time, they have had the power to lynch us. So that's why we have the issues that we have. The issue is a power imbalance, and we got to do whatever we can to gain power. And the power comes from institutions, propagandizing differently to our people. And again, that just being the end goal. The end goal should just, I'm just a staunch advocate for independence. In the meantime, the system is the totality of the system is such that, I guess you could, but I don't know how to completely divest right now. How would I get groceries? How would I, have electricity in my house? How would I have Wi-Fi? But again, that's why it's all about the end goal, because the end goal is going to inform what you do now. And hopefully what you're doing now is going to push us towards a different place, years from now. But this has been an ongoing question within the Black community. And I think that this question has been kind of swept under the rug. And I think overall, many of us have just accepted the fact that integrationism, or some would argue assimilationism, because I think integrationism presupposes that your group already has a certain amount of power, and that then you come to a table with other groups that have power, and then we can do like the whole, we can apply like the melting pot theory or not. But assimilationism is when your group doesn't even have any power, and you're just trying to get in where you fit in with the groups that do have power.
Yeah.
So, and then if these groups know that's where you're coming from, then why would they respect us? Why would they respect you if you're not moving from a space of power? So I think we have to get there, and we have to first decide that that's what we want. And it doesn't have to be 40 million Black people, because I think that's something, all the 40 million Black people in this country, because I think that's something that causes people to get burnt out and feel that we can't do it. We really just need almost like a vanguard group, like a critical mass, like a small amount of committed individuals. And we don't need to, ask people's permission. We don't need to get permission from 40 million Black people either. We just need to have some people that are committed and willing and want to do it. Because when you look at anything, that's how anything goes. The 40 million people, or the whole group, never agrees on anything. You just have a small group of dedicated individuals, relatively small, I should say, of dedicated individuals that just decide that this is what we're going to do, and then they just do it. And then everybody else just kind of follows suit, because by them doing what they've decided to do, now they're providing for people the things that people need: the food, the clothing, the shelter, the entertainment, and so on and so forth. So I just think that, those are just my thoughts about it. The focus on power and, education being key, and it really being a battleground. These schools are battlegrounds. I think we have to talk to our children like that and let them know that, this is like guerrilla warfare. Like, when they're in these schools, they're behind enemy lines. And we as educators, we're behind enemy lines. Like, this is war. This is not sweet. This is not fun. I mean, it can be fun, but overall, this is political. This is intellectual warfare. You know, this is not a game, because this is about, you know, we're trying to train our children so that they'll be equipped to battle for resources. But oftentimes what happens is the goal in these schools is for our children to be able to just assimilate and help or maintain their control over the resources through neo-colonialism, which is something that's been going on forever, this neo-colonialism. And then that's when we get into the issues of, you know, the symbolism and the political figures and all of that. And then, you know, these examples of so-called Black excellence and so-called success that a lot of us don't question. You know, we got to question it. Like, you know, what is this so-called accomplishment or achievement or this new position or this political position or this corporate position? What does it do for the collective of Black people? Not only just in the United States, but throughout the whole diaspora. What does it do for us, you know, in the, you know, on the continent? What does it do for us in the Caribbean or the West Indies or in South America? What does it do? You know? Yeah, I'll stop right there. I've said a lot.
No, I'm listening to you, bro.
We're listening, bro.
I'm listening to you. I'm getting you.
You muted.
I love what you said. You came hard. And I love what you said in old totality and that power piece. And Brother Kareem, you're a principal, a CEO of a charter school. So that presents power. So how does that per se help the space of Black children in your school? Because you can create there.
Yeah, I can create there, but I'm just one school. So like to what, you know, what Akil is saying, what Mr. Parker is saying is that, you know, that's my 450 students that go to my school. But what about the entire city of Chester? What about all of the other students that aren't in my school? Or what about the students that are, you know, in Philadelphia or in Baltimore? You know, there aren't, you know, a lot of, you know, male principals, Black male principals that, you know, that think, you know, the way that I think, or have the best interests of African American children in the school at heart. I mean, we talked about it a little bit today. You know, there are company men and yes men in these positions, so they're not doing always what's in the best interest of students. And you know, when you go the other route, there is a price to pay. You know, well, potentially could be a price to pay. And you know, these administrators have families. These administrators have different things, so they always don't want to, you know, take that position. But there is an opportunity when you do it right, and you know, set it up and put yourself in a great position where you can provide. Like right now, you know, if I want to do a mentor group, or if I want to do a social emotional group for, you know, for the sisters or the young ladies in my school, I can do it. I don't have any red tape. I don't have anything stopping me. You know, like the gentleman said, you know, you want to do a college tour, I find the funds, we get it done. I don't have to deal with any of those other things that other people, you know, other situation has. So I'm kind of on the fence. You know, that's what kind of makes me, you know, lean towards, you know, doing our own thing, because it gives us the opportunity to create, you know, all of the different things that our young people need. You know, we reference the past. You know, like I agree with Mr. Parker. We reference the past. We reference Tulsa and we represent those things. Those are different times now. We're better equipped to deal, to make sure that, you know, they don't just wipe out our independent schools. We're better educated. We have better resources. We have better, you know, artillery, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, to make sure that the demise of Tulsa doesn't happen when we create independent schools now. But you know, I am in the system, you know, so I do think, you know, you do have to navigate. You know, you do have to navigate this system for the best interest of our students. But you know, the charter movement, although people might disagree with the charter movement, however they feel, you know, it does give you latitude to do some different things for our students. So imagine what, you know, if we took the charter school movement, just the principles of being able to, the freedom to do things, not how charter schools are set up or where they get funded from, but just the freedom that charter schools have to do things. If we took that to an independent level, just imagine what we could do.
That's powerful. And you work within that environment. And a lot of people like Steve, you're in actually Baltimore City schools. So how do you yield your independence within this system with the children, because they need it?
You know what? You really you in a trick bag sometimes. And the thing with where I was last year, long as I had those standards, those core standards for the state,
Absolutely.
and if I had the objectives worded correctly and stuff about the subject matter that I am about to teach, they were fine, you know. And then my situation was all totally different because I was teaching incarcerated youth. I was teaching the last piece of the pipeline. And that was supposed to be just sit there, don't do nothing. But I refused that. So I found things that the kids were dealing with within their communities. Gentrification, that's the biggest thing they're dealing with right now. And how they're being outsourced to the county to let people come in the city. So I showed them how that came about and how the times are changing. And you know, and long as I had my I's crossed, I's dotted and my T's crossed, I was fine. But if I did something that the principal didn't want me to do, I couldn't do it. So it's
So you teach within a realm of control.
yeah.
To a point.
And then with my principal, my former principal, she had a problem with showing videos.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't understand. Or playing music in the classroom.
Right.
Wow.
You're entertaining them. You're not educating them.
Right,
You're entertaining them.
Right. And she found fault in that, but I overcame that. But
because I've been in your classroom and you have music. I've been in your classroom.
Yeah.
So you had a principal that didn't like that.
She really didn't like it, but we worked around it. And you know, the good thing is when you create that rapport with your students and your students still know you from when you had them. Like the kids when you used to come to my classroom, I'm still in contact with them and they're almost 40 years old.
Wow.
You know? And if you're a good teacher, students will remember you. Long as you know how to navigate through the bureaucratic BS to get your message across, you straight. And to piggyback on the independence, that would be phenomenal if we could be independent. Definitely independent. Independence is the way to go. But while you're in front of your African American children, you got to give them activities that are high interest and sometimes not low impact, but something that they can relate to and that they can expound on, and you will see them flourish.
And that's cultural sensitivity.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's not in school. You know, they expect to change the children to another culture, and that's not their culture.
Right. And another thing I like is yoga. I like yoga all of a sudden. And I incorporated that in my classroom.
Well, let me see you do something for us.
No, it's it's my moments and stuff like that.
Crouching dog, right?
No, he stood up. Didn't you see him stand up?
Yeah, I need to get one of them poses for me, bro.
Right. And then, social emotional learning is and restorative practice is very much needed in the classroom in the 21st century. Because you don't know what you're going to wake up and get the next day. You have some kids that have trials coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have some kids that have parents that come and see them every day or every Friday. So, you have to have a classroom that adapts to change and you can be, ready for it. And I'm pro restorative practice, pro yoga, and pro social emotional learning.
I love it. Pro yoga. I tell you, Black men are revolutionary. I love y'all.
They got these brothers from Patterson. We got our brothers from Patterson that has this program here in Baltimore City. And the boys, I forgot the name of
and they bring yoga to the school?
They bring yoga to the schools.
Amazing.
In Baltimore City.
Amazing.
And they tell their stories. And the boys, they gravitated to it. And they really like it. And they look forward to every Friday going to yoga.
And this is in prison though.
Our school is a jail.
Right.
It's not a prison.
City
But,
city high
Oh,
school.
yeah,
I'm
it's a
sorry.
city. It's a
So
Baltimore
sad.
City high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
It's
Baltimore
so
City high
sad
school.
that it has to be there, you know?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really sad. It's really sad,
it's really
you
sad.
know. And my kids, when I taught them about Amy Sherrard, I taught them about Ernest Shaw. These are prominent people here in Baltimore City that they
Artists.
see here in
Mhm.
Baltimore City. And in one class period, they had to create their own picture, just like Amy Sherrard did Michelle Obama's picture, to put up in their cell, you know, to promote greatness and black love and just loving on themselves. So
Amazing.
But you know what, Queenie? I don't want to jump over anybody, but I want to say that I don't know that I think that's more of a blessing. I don't think that that's a sad thing, because I've actually visited the jail before. A few of my students have been over there for some stupid stuff. And
have you been to the new one?
no, not when they renovated it and added the little piece. No, I was the one before they knocked it down.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, we're entirely different from them.
I gotta come visit you
Baltimore
then.
City.
All right, I gotta set up a visit then.
Yeah,
but check this out. This is what I wanted to say about that. I think that's a good thing, Queenie, because what if the brother wasn't there, and we had another 80%er in charge of
That's what you
giving them some skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I applaud you, brother, and I know that your work in the community is a legitimate work. Anybody who does it that long, you've already found a comfort zone that the 80% is like non-existent to you.
Yeah,
so
they don't even come on my radar. I just do what I need to do.
Right, you know? Right. But what I wanted to say is this: now that I am not in education anymore, I get to reflect back on it. And one of my saddest reflections is that, like, we have all of these people in different cities that are not connected. And that's a problem. It was the same problem for Malcolm and Martin. We're going to wait till after they die, and then we're going to say, oh, they should have connected. Nah, we have a lot of brilliance, particularly in Philadelphia. I wish I could remember the name of the school that I did a teacher orientation in Philadelphia. It was a charter school as well. I know that it was it wasn't in West Philadelphia, but I know the school was all red and white. It had just been repainted. And a cousin of mine brought me there who was an administrator to do an orientation. And what I found is the first 20 minutes, the kids asked more about the culture of the Baltimorean kids than anything. I was there to do a lecture on how to do a formal research paper. But we didn't get to that. We couldn't cover all of that because so much time was spent for them saying, oh, well, what about The Wire? And what about this? And what about that? So what that means is we don't have a right as Black males to really try to fix things from the outer before we correct some things on the inside. We got some disconnections, right? Like most of us grew up around our cousins and around our friends, and now it's different. Everybody's on their own, volition. But the truth is, we would be much more successful if we found a way to link that private school situation with that Baltimore City jail experience, with that Catholic school, because where you find Black students in need, you find them pretty much everywhere across the United States. The problem is, just like slavery, until you know you're not alone, you do feel like you're fighting the whole plantation by yourself. But as soon as Nat Turner runs into Billy Johnson and he telling you that he's going to meet with Sojourner in 3 or 4 days and they got to hook up with Frederick Douglass, until there's a coalition that's connected, we will feel outnumbered by the 80%. But that's our job to do. We got to start from the inside and make some important connections internally so that when we go outside and get our own, we have a matrix of help. because we don't have a matrix. I wish I could have called out on Brother Steve Moore for more jail field trips. We used to take field trips to Baltimore City Jail. All of a sudden, we didn't have the budget to do that. I wish I could take my kids to Philly to kick it with Brother Akil. Why can't I go to Chester, PA? Why can't I do that? So it's up to us to make those connections and make it happen.
I like that. I like that. Coalesce amongst the schools and amongst educators. So, G, you're in an independent situation. You said you run your own program, so you're already Nat Turner. But we're trying to find, well, how do you feel about the independent, like building independent schools that are bereft of this system that we're in now? How do you feel about that?
I don't really have much of a comment on it. I don't have a lot of experience inside the system. So
Okay.
I don't, I don't really have much to say. I can only speak to sort of the things that I'm doing and the way that it supplements the education system for all people. So I don't really have a lot of insights on that.
Well, that's great because you're, and so in other words, you're not infected. You're just.
I'm just saying I don't really have much to say about that.
I understand.
I didn't come through the system that way, so I don't have a very good reference point. I understand from the standpoint of the students that I work with are coming from traditional school settings, and they have a certain way, a certain expectation of how learning and education works that's very different from what they get when they're with me. But in terms of building, I just don't have a lot of insight on that.
Got it. And that's real right there. So, all right, this is probably my number one question. Black boys in schools are overdiagnosed. They're on IEPs. They are targeted as they can't keep still. All of these issues that is on the child. How do we change the environment for Black children? You guys are Black men in school. What do you do to try to make that environment for them? Because it's very, very, it's an attack mode for them all the time. And I remember me in school as a Black girl, I felt attacked. So I know Black boys, especially in this modernized system we're in now. What are you guys doing to kind of impact them in a positive way where they can go forward and flourish? Anybody jump in? I don't want to call or raise your hand. You in school, raise your hand.
Like I said,
I show them the Black college experience. I show them homecoming videos. Mm-hmm. I show them stepping. I show them, I show them things that I endured and I witnessed. Or I show them fashion shows. Or I show them shoes, because they love to see Mr. Wear's shoe. What you got on today? How did you get them? And my famous line, education. That's how I got it. So you got to engage them like that, because they're not going to go with that rote memory, that book. You got to meet them where they are. And right now, entertainment and fashion is where, and, homecomings for me and college tours, virtual college tours work for me, and they work for me.
But I also want to explore, like, when they're being attacked, and just for being a Black boy, not just particularly showing them things they haven't seen, because that's important.
Restorative practices.
Okay.
Having a meeting, talking stuff out.
Well, for me it's creating policies that aren't punitive. So, like, Steve is saying, making sure that we have restorative conversations, restorative circles, make sure that the social emotional side of my school is just as important as the academics. So at my school, we have social workers, we have a dean, we have counselors. You have those different avenues that when students get upset, it's not just suspension. It's talking to somebody. Making sure that they have an avenue, to talk to somebody. Making sure me and my dean are on the same page. You know, because I get pushback, you know, because a lot of teachers, and not just 80%ers, but
Kareem, can you tell what do you mean your dean? So your dean is
so my dean, so I have a dean of student and culture, right? So I talked about how the dean typically deals with, you know, with discipline, right?
okay.
But I make sure that me and my dean has the same vision, has the same expectations that I have in regards to, you know, how we feel about treating, you know, our young men, or how we feel about treating our students.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, teachers want blood. So when they come to me, they want them suspended. They want this, they want detentions, they looking for blood. So a lot of times we don't give them what they want because, you know, a shove is very different than a fight, a full-on fist fight, and they don't need to be treated the same. So, you know, and so a lot of times, um, they want blood. They want the student to get the highest extent to the law, but that's not going to happen under my under my leadership, you know. Or, you know, my dean has it all the time. You know, I have it all the time. Such and such happened in the classroom. You interviewed a kid, it totally didn't happen the way that they said it, and then you ask them, well, oh no, I didn't get a chance to talk to them. What? Like, that's what needs to happen, right? So you should talk and really find out before you just send somebody to us. So for me, it's just creating policies. You know, at the school that I'm at now, the school that I was at prior, you know, I created a reflection sheet, so where students, you know, have a time to write their thoughts down, you know, they can reflect, and they should have a conversation with the teacher, right? So there's not the back and forth, right? You know, sometimes a lot of, especially our young men, you know, need that opportunity to reflect, really think. You know, they don't need the teacher berating them. They need just a minute to, you know, get their thoughts so they can really say how they feel, really say what's going on. So, you know, I brought that into the school, but then you still have to, you know, worry about teachers just throwing a reflection sheet at the student, not having a dialogue, you know, totally missing the point of what the reflection sheet is about. So, you know, for me, it's just, you know, creating policies, creating things in there, really focusing on the social emotional side, like Steve said, you know, really focus on restorative conversations and restorative practices, and just, you know, keep reiterating that to your staff. And then, like I said, you know, the staff that don't want to engage in conversation, the staff that we telling them, no, you have to sit down and meet with the parent. Yes, you have to talk to the student again. They'll leave your school because they don't want to get with the culture of what you're trying to, you know, anticipate, you know, trying to have at the school. Like, parent communication is a must. If you don't want to do that, then this is not the school for you.
So it's very important that I'm hearing is to have Black males in leadership, because you understand a young Black male. It's important, you know, because like you said, the teachers want blood. They're angry and they want something done. And usually it's to remove that student or to be punitive. So I think having Black males like you in that space to make that final decision definitely makes it a smoother process for young Black males. So, Sadiq.
I'm sorry, can I just say something real quick?
Sure, say something.
Here in Baltimore City, we have 90-minute blocks now of instruction.
What's that?
Can you imagine 90 minutes of straight instruction?
Wow.
That's the class time per period. So I created, after social emotional, I do, you do, we do. And I used stuff from Baltimore. I used Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yep.
And I start reading. And then I pass it to the next brother. And they know that we're going to read for 15 minutes about something about, this was last year's.
Okay.
This year's, we're focusing on the 5 days by Westmoreland, okay? And this is going to be the I do, we do. You got to do stuff that interests them, you know, and this is primarily about Baltimore and the riots and stuff. So you got to find stuff like that. And then to piggyback on the principal, you know, that exit ticket must be something personal about that child's learning experience. So I agree with you on that exit ticket, reflection, we call it exit tickets.
Yeah.
It must reflect, you know, what you learned that day.
One way tickets.
Got
it. Got it. All right, Sadiq. Come on into that. I want to hear what you got to say up there in Philly.
I think for me, one of the hardest things for me to like try to deal with is understanding, like I said before, like schools are kind of like they're agents of the state. And I think that, you know, if we're living in a society that is constantly putting Black boys kind of under their foot, you know, putting a foot on their neck, school is just a microcosm of that. So I think one of the things that I try to do is just create a safe space for, you know, the little boys and girls in my class to find purpose. I think the mission of a lot of the schools that we have differ from the missions that our kids have. So they had, it's a large clash, it's a constant clash. And I think, you know, a lot of times, even as an adult, you know, I had to check myself sometimes. We don't believe that the kids have their own best interests at hand, and they do. But sometimes, you know, it's misguided, but we also at times are misguided in how we want to mold them. So we need to find a better way to be on the same page. And then when that doesn't happen, it can't be, like we said before, punitive. We need to find ways that allows the boys and girls to mature into themselves and have avenues to kind of pursue the ideas that they have. Because when we become oppressive, they just lose touch of everything. So I'll give you an example. I remember it was a policy in my school, and I'm at a charter school, by the way, too. So with those freedoms, depending on who's running your charter schools also have the ability to be even more oppressive, depending on where you're at, because they do have agency to do what they want to do. So depending on whoever's cutting the check running it, that can go both ways.
That's true.
So in my context, we had a policy where the kids couldn't bring their jackets in the classroom. I remember this. It was you know, like if they had a jacket or coat, they would get a demerit. It became this like thing. And for me, it was like, you know, sometimes I upheld it. Sometimes like if I know it was a school-wide policy, but if I didn't feel like it distracted from the content of my lesson, it was what it was.
But what was the reasoning? For weapons? What's the reasoning for no coat? I ask.
It was anything that wasn't supposed to be in the classroom was considered contraband, which is like, I even think about the phrase contraband. So It could be a hairbrush, comb, phone, jacket, a book, but it could be a book. But if you had a science book out in math class, it could be a problem. You know, so I remember, you know, but one of the biggest things was, I think it was kids spending too much time in the hallway or whatever. So they wanted to streamline time if they could or couldn't go to their lockers, and jackets had to be in a certain place. But anyway, you know, it's the first period class, bell rings at 8:10. I got a kid, young boy coming, he run into the classroom because he's about to be late. So he runs in the room, boom, just so he doesn't get in trouble. Because, you know, if you're late, they get in trouble too. Sister principal busts in the classroom, oh, hey, blah, 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 pull that student, come here. He's not supposed to be in here with his jacket on. So I had to tell him, like, oh, you know, you know, so-and-so, he was late. He was just trying to get to class on time. And we kind of both got reprimanded because I was supposed to bang the student for having his jacket. And the administrator and the student kind of got into a little back and forth about it. So me being a person, I had to go to my assistant principal, like, yo, I think it was a better way for you to handle that. One, I had to tell him, I went to the principal. And at the end of it, I kind of felt like I was in the wrong for protecting the student because I wasn't being a team player. Because if I allow him, their rationale was if I allow him to do it in my class, even though it wasn't a problem in my class, it could have potentially became a problem in someone else's class who was trying to uphold the same policy. Which I kind of like, I get it, but at the same time, I had to ask the question, who are we trying to serve here? Are our teachers or are our students? And that question is always like this convoluted thing. So like I said, it's hard for me to even exist in that space. So I know it's extremely difficult for the students to live in that space because they can't advocate for themselves and they can't articulate their points as clearly. And a lot of times it just boils over and they get frustrated. And then you start seeing those, you know, deviant behaviors. So I just think all in all, we need to do a better job at being on the same page as teachers and as administrators with our students. Therefore, we can just deal with small things like that in a more humanistic way, like that. And that's one day of a your career.
Wow.
But I think a lot of the times it's how you respect the student or how you think about the student. Do they need to be taught or do they need to be controlled?
Right.
You know, so that's what I'm hearing is, are you really there to educate, or are you there to hold them in that space for a certain amount of time and then control them and then let them go? So right. Within that control, we got all of these rules, rule. And children, the gray area for them is huge because they're children, you know. And so I kind of, all of these rules that I had in school too, I'm like, it's contradictory to them learning, to me.
Well, I think, I mean, the education system is an instrument of compliance just by design. So that's how it was built. It's working the way it's supposed to be built. They're trying to enforce compliance in some way. That's primary is compliance, and then, you know, that everything else after that. The point that I wanted to make about how to deal with the gift that I try to offer, or what I try to do, is just give the young men the benefit of the doubt. The benefit of the doubt is the one thing that is hard for them to come by, because in so many cases they don't get the benefit of the doubt. They come with the assumption of suspicion, or people come with the idea that, you know, they have ill intent or they have some sort of something going on. So if you approach a person and give them the benefit of the doubt, if there's ever a situation that comes up, you will learn a lot about what people's intentions are and what people's potential is, because a lot of times they get put in positions where it becomes combative and defensive, because that's kind of the mode that they're conditioned to survive with. Because so rarely, you know, do they get the benefit of the doubt? Do they get to have someone hold them in positive regard? So that's the biggest thing, is just the benefit of the doubt. Start there, you know.
Unfortunately, there's so much I could say and want to say, but I'm probably going to have to sign off at this point because I got some things I got to take care of. But I do want to say thank you for this opportunity. Let's stay in contact. Let's not let this be a one-time situation. I don't know how often you can pull us together, but even if we can stay connected individually in general, and this is something that should be an ongoing panel, especially for those people who are about to go back to school right now.
Yeah, we got about 10 or 15 more minutes and then we are signing off. I just wanted to get this last thing about children in the spaces. But I would hope that we could do this again and continue to build in this conversation about Black men teaching and what you guys bring to the table, because what I've heard tonight was things I didn't know. And we're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot. And I think that this has to continue. And I like that we have people in Philly, we have some people in Baltimore City. So we kind of talk about different avenues of how we teach, and different and different areas that we're teaching.
Pedagogy.
That's it. I can't say that.
Bring it back to that word. Say it, Queen. You got to say it.
No, I'm not an educator. I can't say pedagogy. Sorry.
You can say it.
I want you to come, bruh. Come on and tell me about Black children in the space to school. What can we do to help them navigate?
Help them navigate? I mean, it's a lot of things. Before I get to that, can I say something else?
Sure.
I went to the brother that is about to log off. What's your name again?
Brother Kennedy.
Brother Kennedy.
Brother Kennedy. Yeah. So, like, when he said something about us having more of these types of conversations, I think that's very critical, because earlier on, what a lot of us sharing is this opinion that one of the reasons from your earlier questions about why there aren't as many Black men in education is because of the marketing. Like, we're suffering from an issue of marketing. We're suffering from an issue of branding, really. And a lot of the young brothers that are in a lot of these schools, they don't. I mean, I'm gonna just be quite honest with you. Like, a lot of schools that I've worked at over the years, I sit around as a grown man and I look at some of the other Black male teachers, and sometimes
excuse me. Yeah.
Bless you. Sometimes I'm like, you know, I could see if I was a young boy, like I might look up to him and I might want to, you know, walk in his shoes and do what he does. But then a lot of times it's like, okay, yeah, that's a black man, but I don't want to be like that black man. You know what I mean?
Corny.
You know, exactly. Thank you.
That's what you trying not to say, but I get it.
Yeah.
You know,
No, say it. You might as well
Yeah,
say it. We know it
cornball.
anyway.
we gotta
Little
be. That's the
cornball.
thing. We have to be honest about this if we're
Mhm.
serious about not only increasing the number of black young brothers that go into education, but when we create these schools and these, not even if it's not a whole school, but an educational space where the young brothers will want to come to, we gotta you know, talk to the people that, you know, are respected in the community already, and get them to take an interest in this, you know, in this type of work, and in education, and then like building up the community in that way. So we gotta have, like, you know, examples, and we gotta show people that, like, there are black men that are having these types of conversations, you know, about that are teachers that are really out here doing this work and really been out here doing this work. And, you know, so then it puts a different marketing spin on it. So you'll start to think like, oh, okay, wow, like, oh, black men do that. Okay. So we're like, with conversations like this and that they're visible, it serves to shift the narrative,
Sure.
right? It serves to shift the narrative. And then it's like, and it becomes something tangible that you can say, oh, okay, they over there. You know what I mean? And then we could grow from this and say, okay, now we have outings and other events. And I mean, and that's what, anytime you're trying to promote anything, and you're trying to recruit people, you show other people that you might be trying to recruit the examples of who's doing it already. And then let them choose, and they say, okay, yeah, I could rock with that, or I identify with that, or you know what I mean, like he might be a role model, or I mean the sisters do it too, or like she might be a role model, so that's what I want to do. So we gotta just show it, you know what I mean, in like a positive light. And what this kind of does too is it takes us out of the whole, even if it may be true, like in our own little silos, in our own little educational spaces, us being like the one cool teacher or the one cool guy. Like early in my career, that was good for my ego, and I thought that was decent. But then I had to look at it holistically, and in terms of the grand scheme of things, it's like, it's not cool if like young brothers and young sisters, they come to they got 7 periods in a day. They come to my class for 55 minutes or an hour, but then what are they doing for the rest of the time? Like who they with? Like, so really the goal should be like, we need whole schools where they could interact with people, and they don't got to be just like me, but at least they get the same type of appreciation.
Sure.
That person has a different style, they move a little different, but they get that same type of black man or a similar type of black woman that can like provide that, insight and that guidance, that they feel comfortable with, right? In that learning space. But you were saying like, what can we do, brothers in the schools? What were your specific words?
I'm saying, black boys definitely is what I'm really, but black girls too. How can we help them flourish? Because they're in a system that is definitely very predatory towards them, don't understand them. There's not a lot of cultural sensitivity. What I want to hear with black teachers, like black men, what are y'all doing to help them?
I think we
navigate that space.
We have to be unapologetically honest with them about it. We can't sugarcoat anything and let them know, again, that they're behind enemy lines. Like this is warfare, and I think that goes to show, because then you have those conversations. Because sometimes there will be times when you need to check them and pull them up, because they're teenagers or they're young people, and they're not going to be perfect. They're not finished products. They're going to make mistakes. But if they know, like, okay, well, he has shown love and he's treating me like a human being, when he might raise his voice at me or he might lean on me, then it's because, he wants me to tighten up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that because I have a hatred for you. It's other adults in this building that may do that because they have a hatred for you, or they're some kind of sadistic, or they just don't like children, or they don't like black children. But I'm gonna come at you because I want you to tighten up, because I'm trying to get you ready for what's going to go on outside of here when I'm not here to protect you. Because really, I want to protect you, right? So, and if we call it tough love, I heard a brother use another term that I'm thinking about more. We call it explained love. So I don't know, like I got to think about that more. But growing up, I was familiar with the term tough love, but explained love, it makes a little bit of sense. But whatever you want to call it, that's what they need too. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of these spaces.
Yeah.
Is that. Because sometimes, like a young brother, you just like when we was all young, sometimes we needed a grown man just to grip us up. Like, yo, what's wrong with you, bro? Like, And just like I got my son about to be 15 next week. His whole life I've had those conversations with him. Just like a stern, there's something about a young black boy having a stern, a serious, thorough black man that he respects, looking him in the eye and getting him straight. And then when you have those situations, then it's like, okay, there's no need for a write-up. We don't need to do that. We just need me and you need to have a man-to-man conversation. And that's what needs to happen in those spaces, just like it needs to happen in the neighborhood and in the community or whatever institution it is.
And you're saying that is a connection that they understand, that is an understanding, because I'm not a male. So what you said was something amazing when you said a black man that they respect and a young black male having an eye-to-eye conversation. That's important.
Definitely important. That's definitely, because that's you're teaching them accountability. You're teaching them, you're instilling them values. You're teaching them discipline, and also you have to provide you're providing an explanation as to not only, okay, you were wrong in this situation, but why were you wrong? And then you may even get anecdotal with it. You may even let them know, like, if y'all got a good relationship, you can say, bro, like, I remember when I was 14 and I did this. I know how this movie ends. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna stay wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I'm official. You know that. Like, you tell the other people I'm official. Like, I know how y'all be talking about me at lunch and in other classrooms. I know already. So, but I gotta have this conversation, which I gotta let you know when you're messing up. And it's not because I'm standing on high trying to condescend to you. I know, because I did it already. Like, I already made the mistake. So I want you to benefit from my mistake, because I think it's a tragedy if you have people around you that make the same mistakes you did, and you could have possibly avoided them having it if you'd have just had the conversation and just let them know and just pulled them up and just said, bro, come on.
Park, but I also
a lot of times some adults, they come off like, I'm perfect. I've always been perfect. So why aren't you acting like me? And what it really is, it's like, I'm imperfect, but I want you to benefit from my experience. So maybe you don't got to find out the hard way, or at least you're going to do what you want, but I'm gonna let you know what some of the possible outcomes are going to be, or the consequences. So, and that's a life skill, instilling in them consequential thinking. Consequential thinking piece is key, because then it's like, yo, you do what you want. You're free to do whatever you want. You're not free of the consequences. It get young people thinking of the consequences at all times from any situation that they're in or whatever. Reem, you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just want to like kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, and just saying, like, yeah, they need to have that conversation, but they also need to have, like, that conversation is going to look different. So, like, I heard during our conversation, we keep saying, like, the corny teacher, but the corny teacher is needed for our young males as well, because they might not always, there's a myriad of black males with all different personalities and all different ways. And our young men need some connection or entry point and guidance from whoever that is, right? So the corny teacher, or the whatever teacher we want to deem it, I don't even like that term, but the teacher, for whatever reason we want to designate him corny, might be able to connect to that one person. So it kind of goes back to, like, what our young men need to see is a bunch of African-American males that look very different, and that we all on the same page. So when me and Mr. Parker taught together at a school, all of the black men were united, from the janitor to the staff to the NTAs. So they saw all of the different various forms of African-American men in unison. And sometimes, if Park couldn't reach a student, maybe the janitor could. If the janitor couldn't reach the student, maybe I could. So, it's that corny teacher or science teacher that likes Pokemon, or the art teacher that likes graffiti, like, they need to see all that, because it's some relationship that they can connect to that student. So just to, like, piggyback on that, what our young men need to see is varying forms, right? Just like in basketball or actors, right? There's a space for Denzel, Samuel Jackson, Will Smith. There's a need for all of them to be in our media, and there's a need for us to see, for our young men to see all different forms. Like the corny teacher has a space just like everybody else.
Amen. I really agree with that. And I'm glad you're saying that from an administrative standpoint, because you hire and you're not looking for a certain black man. You understand that all Black men in that space is good for Black children. You get what I'm saying? So I like what you just brought forth, that you're an advocate for the corny Black man. I love that, bro.
I'm an advocate for all Black men that could reach. No, I got you. I know what you're saying, but I might not be able to reach a student because we don't have something in common, or I can't relate to that student. So if I have another teacher, that can do that, so be it.
That's right. I like that. All right, Karaju, I got to keep you still, bro. So come on in here, because you what you teach? Special education. You are good at it.
Oh, I got an IEP too, so.
All day.
What's going on with the rest of these brothers? I'm thinking, I think y'all need to drink some more water or something. Ain't nobody got up to go to the bathroom.
Well,
I'm 40-something. I don't know what's up with y'all, how old y'all. But I know I need to go to the bathroom every now and then.
Right.
Water.
I'm gonna have to sign out though, sis. I'm gonna have to sign out. But love to the family. Love to the family. Let's stay connected.
Real talk.
Morgan Bears all day.
Yes.
All day.
You got to run a pigeon to Brother Kennedy though, because he ain't checking no email. You got to run that pigeon.
It's all good.
You got to pull up on Brother Kennedy.
I need the full picture movement. I can't
you need
do
a picture book.
Yeah.
Your Zoom got to be a picture book, bro.
Yeah, go get some crayons and draw your picture in the crayon or something. I'll get back at you. Open the window and yell loudly. I'll get at you.
Yeah, like I said, get that pigeon.
Yeah.
Let that pigeon fly.
We'll holler.
All right, people. Love.
Take care. Come on, Karaji. Tell us about protecting Black children in the special education space. Talk to us.
All right, versus Karagu. And it's weird because honestly, like I said, we are over-identified and we do represent a larger slice of that special ed population. But unfortunately, special education is a money game for a lot of schools because schools receive more funding because they have these kids there. And then they use that money to like buy paper and buy other things that don't necessarily apply directly to those students and their needs.
That's how there's nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. See, and then there's not a lot there to like stop or to try and like keep people to spend like all their special ed money on special ed kids. Like we need like that type of thing going on. But the way how, at least in Baltimore City, every principal basically is in charge of the budget for their school. So they kind of have created like a system that like almost like rewards foolishness. Yeah, it's like that's a lot of foolishness. Like everybody's their own little lord over their building. And the fact that we don't have anything that can work, like where we're working together, we have systems and checks and balances in place. It creates fraud, it creates waste, and just overall, we just don't have like the will and the intention, the vision, to do something different. Like, it's just like, these kids are a problem. I don't really want them here, or these kids, I can take a few of them if they ain't that bad. Just let me have the extra money. And that's kind of like the plight of the special ed kid. They're kind of seen as just like an extra source of income if you're willing to deal with the problems that they might bring or something like that, So the whole system's like broken, which is why, like Gil, I was saying, I don't know if we should burn it down, but I think we should try and do something to make it work. We're the ones that are aware of where the fractures are and where the cracks are.
Yeah.
And it's not so much, I think, about Black men seizing power as much as it is about just trying to be heard and making our voices heard, consistently. That in turn will change the entire, the narrative, I think. Well, at least it's a start.
Wow. I really think we have to reimagine schools in a way, just like we're reimagining the whole system that we're dealing in under this white supremacy apparatus. But schools need to be reimagined in a lot of ways.
Right. That's why I teach comedy, because it's all silly.
Okay.
And they need to be able to see that, to get through it.
And I'm hearing in the chat, like, people are talking about rites of passage in schools and different things to, put in school for Black children, like, whereas they can have this system of cultural sensitivity and a cultural product. So I'm reading the chat and some different, I think there's some educators listening. So it's a beautiful thing. And I think we can take some of these ideals. It is 8:38. So we've been talking, guys, for 2.5, and this is beautiful. I want to commend you, Black men. I know Black Men Teach. You guys are incredible. I feel so blessed to have you here. I want to do this again. I want to do this a few more times. And Brother Kareem, I want to know, can we come up there and check your charter school out? I want to see what you're doing up there. Is that something that's doable, that I can come up there and look at a school that you're actually running? And is that feasible?
Yes, you definitely. I'm more welcome to have you come for sure.
Okay, I would like to show the people something like that, and let maybe get the kids on the mic a little, let them enjoy themselves. You know,
my middle school students will love it.
Excellent. I think we're going to talk about that. And brothers, I want us to continue this. Let's do this again. We got to show children and parents that Black men are teaching, and that you guys are so valuable in this space. I know I didn't have it in as a student, and I just think this has been an impeccable conversation. I'm impressed. I'm totally impressed with what I've heard today. I really appreciate all of the input, all of the movement, Karaju. We appreciate you and your.
She's never gonna get it right. Now it's a game.
Wait, you from Baltimore? You know, Baltimore people don't say the long U's and all. They be like T.
No, Ragu. Bruh.
Like.
Don't get started on that accent, yo. That accent is something.
That English tongue, bro. It's hard to get that Black tongue out. You know, I've been taught in public school education, but holler at me. I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, Kiragu.
I apologize. I'm gonna call you Brother KB. I can't.
No, don't do that. See, my mama taught me about that. See, that's a microaggression.
Oh. I love it.
Be your own people, yeah.
You're really a comedian. So, listen, brothers, let's do this again. Definitely, let's keep this conversation going. I hope. Do you guys know any Black superintendents that are males? That's the truth. Do you guys know any? They're very hard to find. If I can, I would love to talk to them.
I know two.
Because they definitely have a lot to do with policy and how schools are ran. And so I would like to have that conversation. But listen, let's do this again. We are humbly grateful for your appearance tonight. Real talk. All right, guys?
Just let me know, Queen.
Thank you.
And come and do my classroom for me, because
we're coming in. Listen,
we're doing hybrid. Our school is hybrid, so.
Anytime you guys and let me come in, I'm coming in. Real talk. I wanna really see you at your space if I can.
At year 28, yeah. At year 28, can you believe it?
We're gonna move on to the closing.
All right, everyone. If you're listening and you're viewing this, we really appreciate you taking the time to check us out. And if you would like to hear more of the conversations that we've had on Black Box Radio, you can find them at blackboxradio.com. That's BLAKBOXXRADIO.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Black Box Radio, and on Twitter at Box Black. That's BOXXBLAK.
All good. Listen, brothers, I will keep in touch. Kareem, I'm definitely going to holler at you real soon.
Okay.
Akil, thank you so much. Karagu, got it. Thank you. Stephen L. Ware, is all love. G, we partners in crime. Appreciate everybody who's listening. We appreciate. Please subscribe to our website, blackboxradio.com. We will release this all together on our YouTube channel within the next week or two, once we package it and clean it up. But we really appreciate everything. And listen, everyone have a good night. We out. Peace.
All right.
Peace.
All right.